Chapter 1390. Mommy had been living such a hard life all this while. She had tasted the bitterness of the world. He hoped that his mommy could be happier. Happier. When he thought of this, he said unwillingly, "Mommy is still very young. She's only 24 and has suffered a lot. I feel that it's so unfair. I can't accept it." At this point, he glanced at Wuxia and asked, "When do you plan to hold your wedding with Mommy?" "I haven't thought about it yet," Wuxia said honestly. "You're not ready?" Yu seemed unhappy with this answer. "Not really." Wuxia paused. When they reached a traffic light junction, the car stopped. He turned his head and answered seriously, "I haven't thought about how to give her a perfect wedding." In the past, he only felt that weddings were an insignificant formality. Perhaps it was because he had never thought that there would be such a person who would make him seriously consider how to create a romantic and perfect wedding. However, now, he also had some romantic fantasies about his marriage with Xianxia. When it came to romance, men always seemed to lack themselves compared to women. Actually, that was not the case. Did men not understand romance? That was not the case. A man did not understand romance only because that person did not appear. When Yu heard this, he felt gratified but also jealous. He could not bear to part with her. "I can't bear to let Mommy marry you." He revealed the conflict in his heart honestly. Wuxia frowned. This kid, his mommy was marrying him. Why did this little kid give off an inexplicable feeling of melancholy? And this kind of melancholy was like a father who had experienced the vicissitudes of life and was about to marry off his beloved daughter. Li Hanlin had once said that Yu and Xianxia were mother and son in some ways. However, when Yu hid that side of him behind Xianxia's back, Yu doted on his mommy more like a daughter. It was a sense of déjà vu between father and daughter. It was as if ethics had been reversed. Wuxia's lips twitched. Yes, that was the feeling. Yu was like a father who couldn't bear to see his daughter get married. Just as he was feeling awkward, he heard Yu's daddy mumble again, "I suddenly feel that it's so unfair." Unfair? Yes. I feel that I can't let you take advantage of me for nothing. My mommy is as beautiful as a flower, gentle and kind. The people who want to pursue my mommy could line up from my doorstep to Siberia. Why should I let you beat me to it? The more Yu spoke, the more indignant she became. She clenched her fists and snorted arrogantly, "You didn't even go through the process of courtship. No, I can't let you pass. Daddy, I can't let Mommy marry you like this. It's too easy on you." Wuxia was stunned. "Why, tell me, you disappeared for 6 years for no reason. Now that you've reappeared, you didn't even go through the process of courtship. How can I let you marry Mommy so easily?" However, Wuxia felt that the little kid's silent scheming was really interesting and adorable. Seeing that he had made the decision in all seriousness, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and ask, "Oh? There are conditions?" "Of course." Yu said matter-of-factly, "You didn't even go through the process of courtship, love letters, dating, or courtship. That's not fair." Wuxia was stunned. Chapter 1391. You actually went on a date with Mommy behind my back? Yu smelled a hint of adultery and there was a dangerous glint in his eyes. It doesn't count. It's not formal enough. If you want to marry my mommy, you have to start from a formal courtship. Yu concluded. Wuxia kept quiet. Courtship? Yes. Do you know how to court girls? Can you teach me? Wuxia's expression was serious. What he said was true. He had never courted any girl before. Basically, the women around him couldn't wait to get close to him. He had never taken the initiative. You don't even know how to court girls. So, how about you be Daddy's strategist? Wuxia asked humbly with a sincere expression. However, Yu retorted, I can't even bear to let Mommy marry you. How can I be your strategist? Dream on. Wuxia kept quiet again and glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. Yu did not back down and looked back at him from the corner of his eyes. The father and son faced each other in silence. Wuxia pursed his thin lips. He had learned his lesson. To put it bluntly, this fellow was unwilling to let his mommy marry him. Hence, he deliberately made things difficult for him. This was a test for him. If he could not bear to marry Mommy, he should have just said so. The little fellow was so awkward because he could not bear to let Mommy go but was too shy to express it. On the other side, Yu said lightly, "Daddy, Mommy doesn't belong to you yet. If you don't hurry up, there will be so many people courting Mommy." These words were obviously a threat to him. Wuxia smiled deeply, but his eyes were filled with gentleness. Back to Xianxia. In the time it took for him to park the car, Yu flew into the house and hurriedly ran into the bedroom. He carefully pushed open the door, tiptoed in, and silently made his way to the bedside. Xianxia was sleeping soundly. She did not seem to realize what had happened tonight and was still immersed in a gentle dream. Yu felt relieved when he saw that she was sleeping soundly. When he went out tonight, he secretly wanted to settle things behind her back. Yu had always been like this. In a corner where Xianxia could not see, in a small detail that she could not detect, he arranged everything for her. No matter how big the devil he would kill God and God would kill God. Whenever Mommy zesesestes, he would be zzzzzz. Even if he had to fight against the heavens, even if he had to be the enemy of the world, he would wholeheartedly protect her and ensure her safety. Yu squatted down and leaned over the bed, looking at her gently. When his gaze met Xianxia's sleeping face, his gaze instantly softened and became as gentle as water. It was as if Xianxia, who was sleeping on the bed, was the most beautiful treasure in the world in his eyes. It made him want to take pity on her. A strand of hair fell between her eyebrows and intertwined with her thick eyelashes. He gently reached out and brushed the strand of hair away, tucking it behind her ear. She was extremely sensitive. Even if it was from Yu's tender fingertips, that slight touch was enough to make her, who was in her dreams, let out a muffled moan. It was as if she was talking in her sleep. Afraid that he would disturb her, Yu immediately withdrew his hand and blinked innocently. He was afraid that he would wake her up. Xianxia's delicate lips opened and closed, letting out a soft murmur before returning to being docile and quiet. She did not wake up. Chapter 1392. He poked Xianxia's soft cheeks with his fingertips and muttered to himself, "Mommy, I can't bear to marry you off. This is a very selfish way of thinking, isn't it?" His gaze fell on Xianxia's sleeping face. Suddenly he was a little distracted. Indeed, he couldn't bear to part with her. How should he put it? It was a very strange feeling. It was as if the person he had always cared for and protected with all his might would no longer belong to him alone one day. From a certain perspective, wasn't it a kind of loss as well? Or perhaps, even though he and his mommy had depended on each other for 6 years and had developed an inseparable bond, marrying off his mommy would always make him feel a little lonely. This kind of loneliness was not something that Wuxia and Xiao Yichen could give him. Just as Li Hanlin had said, from a certain perspective, his mentality was indeed similar to that of a father who couldn't bear to marry off his daughter. Yu sighed and looked down. "Mommy, don't worry. If you're happy, that's my happiness. If you're not happy, wouldn't you use hard work be meaningless?" When he thought of this, he leaned over and gently planted a kiss between Xianxia's eyebrows. "My dear Mommy, good night." After saying that, he carefully tucked the bedding in for her and left silently. When Wuxia finished parking his car and walked in, Yu had already washed up and changed into her pajamas. Standing at the door, he rubbed his eyes. "Daddy, good night." Wuxia smiled. "Good night, baby." Yu smiled and waved her hand. Just as she was about to enter the room, she suddenly thought of something. She turned around and walked in front of Wuxia. Then she hooked her finger at him mysteriously. Wuxia saw that Yuehan seemed to have something to say. He bent down slightly and looked at Yuehan at eye level. Yu suddenly leaned over and kissed his forehead gently with her pink lips. "Ba ji," he took a bite. It was fragrant. Wuxia was stunned. He never thought that the little fellow would take the initiative to kiss him. A goodnight kiss? He smiled gently, and his heart felt warm again. Tonight, this little fellow had warmed his heart to the point of bursting with joy. Yu clasped her hands behind her back and lowered her head shyly after the kiss. She seemed very awkward and bashful. Seeing Mu Yaja's stunned and surprised expression, he explained, "Good night kiss." "Stupid daddy?" "Yes." Mu Yaja was still a little slow on the uptake. The surprise came too suddenly. The little fellow actually took the initiative to say goodnight to him. In the past, he wouldn't have dared to think about it. Seeing his indifferent reaction, Yu could not help but be annoyed by his slowness and clumsiness. Was that all he could do? Yu could not help but feel hurt. He had taken the initiative to give him a goodnight kiss. In the end, his stupid daddy was like a block of wood. Did he not know how to give him a goodnight kiss? Thinking of this, he muttered angrily, "Stupid daddy." Then, he turned around and was about to enter the room. However, just as he turned around, Mu Yaja suddenly picked him up from behind and held him in his arms. "Good boy, baby." Mu Yaja's slender fingers pinched his chin. His thin lips brushed past his ears and landed on his pink cheeks. Mwah! It was a light kiss. A reply to his goodnight kiss. Yu was slightly distracted. Then, her face turned red and she pursed her lips. She was clearly a little shy. Alright. Chapter 1393. Mu Yaja carried him back to the room and turned on the wall lamp. As soon as the warm wall lamp was turned on, Mu Yaja and Yu were stunned when they saw the scene on the bed. Then, both of them frowned at the same time. She saw little Ichen sleeping soundly on the bed, but his sleeping posture was as restless as usual. At this moment, he was like an octopus with his small arms and legs sprawled out, occupying more than half of the bed domineeringly. He was even snorting soundly at this moment. "Daddy, look!" Yu complained pitifully. "This guy is restless every night. I don't want to sleep in the same bed as him. Every morning, I'm almost squeezed off the bed by him." Mu Yaja was speechless. "Daddy, does he usually sleep like this in the Mu family?" Yu asked. "His sleeping posture is terrible," Yu criticized mercilessly. Mu Yaja sighed heavily. This probably had something to do with his sleeping habits. Xiao Yichen's bed in the Mu family's bedroom was very big. It was 3 meters wide and 4 meters long. Therefore, the little guy had developed the habit of sleeping in an unrestrained manner since he was young. After all, the bed was very big and spacious. Therefore, he had always been used to acting wildly on such a big bed. Therefore, he could not adjust to the fact that he had changed to a 2-meter bed. However, Yu was different. When he was younger, he and Yun Shirshir slept on the same bed. Yun Shirshir slept very quietly. Basically, she would sleep in the same position when she woke up. If she was not disturbed, she would not change her position for the entire night. When Yu was older, he could not afford to change to a bigger bed. He slept on a 1.5-meter bed. Therefore, he slept very peacefully. After meeting Xiao Yichen, Yu finally realized that some people could behave wildly in their sleep. Sometimes, Yu really wondered what Xiao Yichen was dreaming about. Why did he fall asleep and move so much? There were several times when he was woken up by this fellow. He really wanted to wake him up, pinch his face, and ruthlessly ravage him. Mu Yaja said sympathetically, "Baby, it's been hard on you." Yu was speechless. After a moment of silence, he suggested, "I want to change to a bunk bed." He slept on one bed while Xiao Yichen slept on the other. Mu Yaja agreed. "I'll send someone to buy one tomorrow." "No need." Yu said, "I'll book one for myself tomorrow." Under Leji Holdings, there was a smart children's bed. It had 2 bunk beds and an intelligent sleep system. It was very popular. He was the one who researched and designed it. Just as well, he could book one and experience the results of his own design. Mu Yaja was speechless. This son of his was really not an ordinary genius. At his age, he did not even know how to draw. His son could already sleep in the smart children's bed that he designed. The pupil had surpassed the master. However, he felt very proud of it. His 2 sons were so outstanding. "Go to sleep." Mu Yaja carried him to the bed and covered him with a blanket. Yu glanced at Xiao Yichen, who had been chased to the side by Mu Yaja. His disdainful expression softened slightly. "Daddy, you have to sleep early too," he said softly. Mu Yaja smiled and walked to Xiao Yichen's side. He also planted a good-night kiss between his brows. When he left the room, he turned off the lights and closed the door. He went to the bathroom to wash up before returning to the bedroom. Chapter 1394. At this moment, it was already late into the night. It was pitch black outside the window. There were no stars in the sky, only the bright moon was gradually covered by dark clouds. There was a light lamp at the head of the bed. He walked over and looked at the person on the bed. She was sleeping soundly. There were traces of someone gently twisting the blankets. Thinking about it, you must have come in just now and twisted the blankets for her. This considerate little guy always hid his gentleness in the bottom of his heart. If this blissful little woman knew that her son had silently done so much for her, she would definitely be touched. However, you had never let her know. He had always hidden this gentleness behind her back, silently protecting her in a place where she could not detect it. Wuxia got onto the bed. He leaned forward slightly and pulled her into his arms. His movements were extremely gentle and careful, afraid that he would disturb her. He placed her head on his arm and stroked her cheek with his fingers. Wuxia lowered his gaze and looked at her face. At this moment, the person in his arms was sleeping quietly. Her gentle and quiet sleeping face was as warm and peaceful as the years in the world. When she was quiet, the beauty of her face became even more flamboyant. However, this flamboyance didn't reveal its sharpness. It wasn't dazzling, but it was docile and quiet. Occasionally, one would catch a glimpse of her beauty and realize that there was a shocking charm hidden in her beauty. In that instant, even his heartbeat uncontrollably calmed down. He was afraid that if his heartbeat became stronger, it would disturb her in her sleep. Hugging her in his arms, he felt a sudden surge of emotion in his heart. That was, he wanted to present the most beautiful treasure in the world to her and give it to her. However, on the other hand, he felt conflicted. Wasn't the most beautiful treasure in the world sleeping quietly in front of him right now? Perhaps, in his eyes, there was no treasure in the world more precious than this. Yu's words suddenly rang in his ears. In my eyes, Mommy is the most beautiful treasure in the world. Mommy is the most beautiful gift given to me by God. Even if I have to become the enemy of the world, I will protect her to the fullest. If you love her, please treat her well. Lest she wander about in misery, lest she have no one to rely on. All right. Wuxia could not help but ask. I will definitely take care of you properly. He nodded slightly and whispered gently into her ear, Sure, I'll pursue you, okay? His question was gentle and quiet. However, in her sleep, she would not respond to him no matter what. Wuxia's lips curled into a smile as he turned off the wall lamp and pulled her into his embrace. Holding her in his arms, he fell asleep in a soft dream. When Xianxia woke up in the morning, it was already dawn outside the window. However, due to the heavy curtains, the room was dimly lit. She opened her eyes and saw Wuxia's peaceful sleeping face. Her heart froze, but at the same time, she felt exceptionally warm. She didn't know when he came back, nor did she know when he fell asleep. He must have gone to bed very late. He hugged her shoulders, and his palm quietly rested on her waist. His thick weight made it easy for her to feel the warmth from his palm. The happiest thing in life was to wake up with you. In the morning, the first thing she saw when she opened her eyes was him. How wonderful! Chapter 1395. Xianxia woke up, but she did not get up. She just quietly nestled in his arms and looked at him. She was surprised to find that this man was especially good-looking when he was asleep. When he was awake, he was the pride of the heavens and the elite of the empire. He shone brightly, as if he was the reincarnation of the emperor. His eyes were handsome, and his body was sharp. His exquisite features were arrogant and sharp. It was as if all the darkness had nowhere to hide when he opened his eyes. However, when he was asleep, his sharpness was restrained. He was quiet and deep. His eyes were gentle and his handsome features were different from his usual radiance. They were extremely gentle. Xianxia's gaze fell on his sexy thin lips. His lips were very thin, and his lips were arrogant and even a little sharp. She could not help but reach out and touch his lips with her fingertips. Her fingertips traced the line of his lips and carefully traced the shape of his lips. It was said that people with thin lips were fickle in love. Xianxia pursed her lips slightly. She felt that this was simply a fallacy. However, in her heart, this man was extremely affectionate, even loyal. Xianxia looked up and her gaze fell on his eyes again. When he was asleep and his eyelids were closed, she could see his deep eyeliner and his thick and long eyelashes. His eyelashes were ridiculously long and his eyelashes were very deep. She finally understood who Yu had inherited his beautiful eyelashes from. Usually, when he opened his eyes, he gave people the feeling that his gaze was very deep, extremely evil, and breathtaking. It turned out that he had a pair of deep eyeliner like Yu and Xianxia. Especially his eyelashes that were like the feathers of a black phoenix. They were so beautiful that even gods and men would be envious of them. So much so that she was a little jealous. Why did the heavens dote on him so much and mold him to be so perfect? However, on second thought, it was all thanks to the heavens that they loved him so much. Yu and Xianxia had inherited his excellent genes. When she thought of this, she instantly felt satisfied. Xianxia secretly reached out and fiddled with his eyelashes. From time to time, she would pinch them between her fingers and gently stroke them. It's very thick. She was like a naughty kitten, lazily nestled in his arms, lazily playing with his eyelashes. She seemed to be enjoying herself. In his sleep, Wuxia's brows were slightly furrowed, as if he was annoyed. He subconsciously reached out and swatted her little hand away. She was unwilling to give up. When he was deep in sleep, she reached out her hand and played with his eyelashes. Her fingers then moved to his eyebrows and carefully rubbed them. Her fingertips then fell between his eyebrows, trying to smooth out the wrinkles between his eyebrows. Why did the men here look so serious even in their sleep? Why did they always frown? She rubbed it carefully, trying to smooth out his furrowed brows. All of a sudden, Wuxia opened his eyes. He raised his eyelids and his deep pupils shone with the light of awakening. She was instantly embarrassed. "You're awake?" Could it be that he was woken up by her disturbance? She furrowed her brows in annoyance and bit her lip. Her movements were very gentle. Little did she know that this man had always been a light sleeper. Even the slightest movement would wake him up easily. The moment Wuxia opened his eyes, the sharpness in his eyes disappeared. However, when his vision cleared and reflected on her delicate face, the sharpness quietly faded away. Chapter 1396. After he brushed it away, she persevered and continued to play with it, as if she was never tired of it. She whispered, "You're awake? Did I wake you up? You should have come back very late last night. Did you sleep very late? What were you doing just now?" He asked in a deep voice. His voice was a little hoarse and deep because he had just woken up, and it was especially sexy. She could still hear it, and her heart instantly went numb. Feeling a little guilty, Xianxia snorted and avoided the topic. "I'm not doing anything." Could she say that she was bored when she woke up, so she secretly played with his eyelashes? Or was she envious of his long eyelashes? They were so beautiful that she couldn't help but get addicted to playing with them? He would definitely laugh at her for being bored again. "What are you doing?" The man pursed his lips, obviously doubting her words. "I see that you're full of energy early in the morning." Xianxia blushed and immediately defended herself. "I woke up. After reading the script yesterday, I went to bed very early. My biological clock woke me up naturally." So? Wuxia raised his good-looking brows. "So, she had to wake him up when she woke up?" Xianxia glanced at him and couldn't help but explain. I woke up a long time ago. I was bored when I woke up, so I was counting your eyelashes when you were asleep." Counting his eyelashes? What kind of game was this? Wuxia furrowed his brows and asked, "Have you counted clearly?" How could she count clearly? It was like a brush. If she had such thick eyelashes like his, she would save the effort of brushing them. Little did she know that as soon as her voice fell, the man's tall body flipped over and covered her body in a dark mass. He supported himself with his arms by her side. With just a stretch of his hand, he gently lifted a strand of her hair that had fallen on the pillow. He sniffed at the tip of his nose and lowered his eyes. Obviously, he enjoyed this fragrance very much. Opening his eyes, His handsome eyes suddenly flashed with a touch of playfulness. Then, I'll give you another chance. The man smiled evilly, bowed his head, and leaned closer to her. Their noses touched and their lips touched. His warm breath brushed against her face, incomparably intimate. A clear voice rang in her ears. Count how many eyelashes I have. Xianxia blushed slightly, and then she unnaturally avoided his overly deep eyes. She muttered in a low voice, I'm not counting anymore. What is it? Wuxia brushed her hair, but was puzzled. You were counting happily just now. She felt powerless and said lazily, there are too many. I can't count them all. Your eyelashes are so long and dense that my eyes hurt from counting them. All right. The man smiled and kissed the corner of her lips lazily. Sticking to her lips, his thin lips escaped from her lips. Since you're so energetic and don't count your eyelashes, let's do something else. Xianxia was stunned. Soon she could hear the hidden meaning in his words. His words were obviously referring to something else. A wisp of red flew to her ears, and like a fire spreading, it burned her cheeks. Soon, her entire face seemed to be smeared with rouge, revealing a charming shade of red. Hey, stop fooling around. Her shyness, in his eyes, had a hint of wanting to reject him. Chapter 1397. Why, you don't like it? The man raised his eyebrows arrogantly and whispered into her ear. Between his smile, there was a hint of cynicism. Coupled with that clear voice, it was damn charming. In his eyes, it was as if there were stars that had been cut up, sparkling and sparkling. Being stared at by him like this, Xianxia's face grew increasingly hot. Her originally jade-like face was dyed with a rosy blush, exuding a delicate, tender, and translucent glow. She was obviously a little shy. The man was openly acting like a rogue in front of her. She was so embarrassed that she wanted to crawl under the blanket. Wuxia curled his lips into a smile. Originally, he thought that this woman would have gotten used to it, but now it seemed that he had not taught her well enough. Thus, he pinched her waist with his large palm. The soft touch immediately made him groan in pleasure, but his heart felt extremely comfortable. He was very satisfied with this soft touch, so he planned to do some morning exercises that were beneficial to his body and mind in this beautiful morning. While he was thinking about this, his hands had already begun to move. He skillfully stripped off her underwear and bent down to cover her cherry lips. This kiss seemed to have been premeditated for a long time. Nestled in her embrace, that pink little mouth opened and closed as if it was a silent invitation, luring him in. His heart had been itching for a long time, so when he lowered his head to look at her, it was as if he had found a prey to aim at. He stared fixedly at those pink pouty lips and pressed down on her. However, many erotic images flashed past his mind. As a man, he always had many erotic fantasies towards the woman he loved. Wuxia was the same. His mind filled with erotic images, and his body wrapped in the blanket became even hotter. Even though they were separated, the changes in his body were obvious. When Xianxia felt the heat, her heart suddenly beat like thunder, and her face felt as if it was cooked. He peeled off her pajamas and pressed his lips against hers, delicately embellishing her lips. At first, he was extremely careful and his kisses were gentle. Slowly, as the temperature in the room rose and turned white, he was no longer restricted to this light kiss. Gradually, he became fierce and wild. He held the back of her head with one hand and deepened the kiss. He wished he could turn into a beast and swallow her whole. He was lying on top of her, his two strong and sturdy arms supporting her on both sides of her shoulders, controlling her in a narrow space. His strong and fit body pressed down on her, leaving almost no room for maneuver. The ferocious kiss almost made her unable to breathe. Xianxia couldn't keep up with his pace. Her mind was blank, and she felt like she was about to suffocate. Xianxia punched his shoulder in annoyance, but the man ignored her and only sealed her lips, sucking and licking. He actually kissed her until her lips were swollen. Sweet, it was extraordinarily sweet. Wuxia couldn't help but be infatuated with the overly sweet breath on her lips. He parted her lips and passionately invaded, engulfed, and lingered. Xianxia was gradually melted by this fiery kiss, turning into warm and soft jade water. Unknowingly, the pajamas on his body were quickly removed, and the two of them were entangled together. He possessed her. Chapter 1398. For a moment, the room was filled with the charms of spring as the temperature rose rapidly. After a round of passionate lovemaking, he hugged her and immersed himself in her warmth as he savored the aftertaste of love. However, even after doing it a few times, he still did not know when to stop and teased her from time to time in an attempt to arouse her. However, she did not live up to his expectations and did not respond at all. She was also indifferent to his teasing. It was too tiring. At this moment, Xianxia seemed to have been drained of all her energy as she lay limp in his arms, unable to move at all. Even lifting a finger was difficult. She laid lazily in his arms. It was not easy for her to accumulate enough energy after a night of recuperation. At this moment, under his torment, it all collapsed and she was exhausted again. Her eyelids were heavy. She lazily half-opened her eyes and looked out of the corner of her eye, only to see the man leaning against the head of the bed and looking down at her. His eyes were playful and mischievous as if he was mocking her for not living up to his expectations. He pinched the bridge of her nose and said, "Your stamina is too weak." When Xianxia heard this, she could not help but feel angry. Could she blame him for this? Her stamina was not bad. But did he not see how ruthless he was when he wanted her just now? The deep invasion almost made her whole body fall apart. She was a little disappointing, but wasn't it all for him? Did he think that everyone was as strong as him, as if they never knew how to be satisfied and tired? The anger in her eyes made him laugh. Wuxia pinched the tip of her delicate nose lovingly and teased, "Why, are you not convinced?" Xianxia bitterly slapped his hand away and said in a muffled voice, "Don't mess around. I'm a little tired now." She looked down tiredly and felt that after the battle just now, her eyelids were starting to fight again. "I know you're tired." Otherwise, he would not have let her off so easily. He said in a deep voice. He did his utmost to suppress the dark desire in his eyes. Now he was doing his utmost to restrain it. At the same time, a playful look appeared in his eyes, making one's face redden even more. She couldn't help but feel a little defeated. She raised her eyes to look at the man in front of her. He was like an arrogant emperor, lazily and elegantly leaning against the headboard. His gaze fell on her face. There was teasing, mischievous, playful, but most of all, there was a mischievous smile. This smile was mixed with a bit of devilish charm, but it also seemed like he was harboring evil intentions, as if he was mocking her disappointing physical strength. Xianxia was furious. The more she looked at him, the more indignant she felt. This man was too vile. The way he looked at her really made her feel ashamed. When he thought about how he had used those embarrassing postures to take advantage of her, and how she had sunk into this dark, turbulent wave of passion. When he thought about how she had sunk into it, and how she had let out some tender chuckles, she felt even more ashamed and buried her face deep into the pillow. It was too embarrassing. At this moment, she wanted nothing more than to ruthlessly bang her head against the wall or find a hole to bury her head in. She was like a shy little bunny in front of him. However, her shy actions in his eyes were adorable and extremely cute. He couldn't help but lower his head and gently peck her red cheeks. The scene just now seemed to be unfinished as his body changed again. He frowned and cursed in his heart. Chapter 1399. Xianxia glanced at the man's tensed expression and her face turned even redder. She muttered, "What a horrible man." Then she crawled under the blanket and wrapped herself up. Wuxia chuckled inwardly. This woman is deliberately avoiding me. Could it be that he had frightened her? Wuxia suppressed his desire. Even though he hadn't had enough fun, he was still in a good mood after the morning exercise that was good for his body and mind. At the same time, he still felt dissatisfied. This woman's physique was a little weak, especially when it came to her physical strength. It seemed like she had to exercise more. He hadn't had enough fun, but she was already tired. This made him a little unhappy. However, he was a man who knew when to stop. When necessary, he wouldn't act rashly and alert the enemy, so as not to scare this little woman. After all, some things had a long way to go. A person's life was so long. He and she had a lot of time to study this. Hence, he wasn't in a hurry. He got out of bed and walked to the bathroom. After taking a cold shower to calm himself down, he walked to the door. Just as he turned the doorknob, he felt a weight on the door. Just as he opened the door a crack, two little lads, who were leaning against the door and listening attentively, were caught off guard and rolled in. Yu was the first to roll in. She was caught off guard and fell face first onto the floor. She groaned softly. Xianxia was the first to scream. He lost his balance and fell onto Yu's body. Yu cried out in pain again. The two squishy little balls fell onto the floor like a human pyramid. Xianxia was shocked by the sudden sound. She peeked out from under the blanket and saw this scene. Her face turned so red that it looked like blood was going to ooze out. Hence, she crawled back under the blanket without a sound. This time, she was too ashamed to crawl out of the blanket. Woo, was there anything more embarrassing than this? Xianxia wanted to cry but had no tears. At the same time, he was secretly annoyed, but at the same time, he was worried about when these two little fellows had been hiding outside, and whether they had heard anything. The two little fellows were still so young. They wouldn't learn anything bad, right? Wuxia also seemed to have not expected this. He was stunned in place, and his handsome face darkened. A storm was coming. He had never thought that these two fellows would actually be eavesdropping outside the door, and even let him catch them red-handed. What happened? He questioned in a deep voice, but there was a trace of unhappiness in his words. Xianxia's ears perked up. As soon as he heard Wuxia's unfriendly tone, his little face paled. He knew that he had done something stupid. It's over. He seemed to have made Daddy unhappy. Xianxia awkwardly got up from Yu's body and stood up helplessly. He lowered his head and clasped his hands together nervously, not daring to look up at him. Daddy, he called out timidly and weakly. His voice was as soft as a mosquito's buzzing. It was obvious that he knew that he had done something wrong and was extremely ashamed. Wuxia's gaze was cold and intimidating, and his face was filled with anger. What are you doing? Xianxia could not answer. He nervously tugged at the corner of his shirt, looking like a timid little deer. Chapter 1400. Xianxia didn't know how to answer, so he glanced at the ground for help. In the end, he saw Yu lying on the ground motionlessly, pretending to be a corpse. Xianxia was speechless. Yu's behavior was a classic example of betraying a teammate. At this moment, the little guy kept telling himself that he was just passing by and didn't know anything. He was innocent. It was definitely not the right time to stand up and laugh it off. Since he was unfortunately discovered, Yu had his own tricks up his sleeve and would be able to escape this ordeal. Wuxia glanced at the corpse on the ground and his lips twitched. Then he stretched out the tip of his foot and gently kicked his round little butt. Dung, he said, get up. Yu remained motionless, lying face down on the ground and ignoring him. No reaction. No reaction at all? Wuxia raised a brow as his heart skipped a beat. He was suddenly a little worried. He remembered that Yu was the first to rush in and fell face down. Xianxia, who followed closely behind, fell on top of him and pressed him down heavily. He didn't know if it hurt him or not. Wuxia squatted down and stretched out his hand to pinch his cheeks. Then he picked up little Munchkin, who was lying limply on the ground, and turned him over. At a glance, Wuxia saw that his forehead was red from kowtowing. It seemed to be bruised. Little Munchkin lifted his head and opened his eyes innocently. He blinked and his eyes were misty. He seemed to be in pain from the fall. When he blinked, a crystal-clear teardrop rolled down his cheek. Daddy, it hurts, little Munchkin called out softly. Coupled with his innocent eyes, he looked at Xianxia with grievance and resentment. Wuxia immediately lost his temper. Xianxia, who was standing at the side, was so shocked that his mouth was wide open. Was this even possible? Feeling wronged, Yu pursed his lips and retorted, Daddy, why did you suddenly open the door? I lost my balance and fell. Wuxia felt wronged and wronged. Who told you to eavesdrop outside the door? He couldn't help but say in displeasure. Sob, sob, sob. Yu clutched her chest in agony as if she had been wronged. She made sure to portray the word pain in her heart. Daddy, how dare you accuse me? Eavesdropping? How could you do something so despicable? Yu is angry. Wuxia was rendered speechless by his words. Darling's heart is so cold. Wuxia was speechless. At the side, little Ichen's eyes widened as he sucked in a breath of cold air. If you weren't eavesdropping, then why were you standing by the door? Wuxia asked and looked at little Munchkin's tearful face suspiciously. Yu and Xiao Ichen looked at each other and said confidently, "We were just passing by." Wuxia's lips twitched even more. He narrowed his eyes and was obviously skeptical. Passing by? Yes. Passing by. Yu said seriously. Wuxia didn't believe her at all. Little liar. Really. Yu suddenly wiped her tears and smiled obediently like a polite and humble gentleman. Actually, I just finished making breakfast and wanted to come over and greet Daddy and Mommy. I also wanted to ask when Daddy and Mommy are having breakfast. Chapter 1401. Xiao Ichen was speechless, Wuxia was speechless, Xianxia was speechless as well. Yu tilted her head and smiled like an angel. She was pure and harmless. Good morning, Father. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. Would you like to have breakfast? Xiao Ichen's shoulders trembled. He thought to himself, there are so many smiles in the world, but Yu is the only one who makes me feel that her smile is scarier than her poker face. It's more hair-raising. He felt that she was very two-faced. Ahem. What's for breakfast? Wuxia asked quietly. Yu's lips curled up and she smiled even more beautifully. Bread, milk, poached eggs, and ham. Wuxia was stunned. Then he said, I like poached eggs. Yu kept calling him father, and he felt a little smug. In an instant he completely forgot about the 2 glutinous rice balls eavesdropping outside the door. Xiao Ichen was dumbfounded. He and Yu were indeed not on the same level. Even someone as smart as Daddy was completely under Yu's control. With a bright smile on his face, he asked, Oh, right. My dear father, I've also fried deep-fried dough sticks. The outside is crispy and the inside is tender. The taste is superb. Do you want to try it? Wuxia nodded in a daze. Then he carried Yu to the dining room. Xiao Ichen was dumbfounded. He was petrified on the spot. Xianxia hid under the blanket and couldn't help but snicker. Ha! She was amused by Yu's smart and adorable look. She was amused. This little fellow was really a little shrewd. He had his daddy in the palm of his hand. With just a few words, she managed to coax Wuxia into having breakfast while avoiding the main point and dwelling on the trivial. Otherwise, this matter wouldn't be over. If Yu wasn't around, Xiao Ichen might have been taught a lesson. Yu saved him from the abyss of suffering with just a few words. She wasn't simple. Xiao Ichen learned and experienced what it meant to be scheming. Mommy! Xiao Ichen stood at the door and called out to Xianxia. Xianxia emerged from the blanket with a blushing face, only to see the little boy leaning against the door with a blushing face. He shyly greeted, Mommy, good morning. With that he ran off. Shyly. The 2 little guys didn't intend to eavesdrop. They rushed over to invite Wuxia and Xianxia to the dining room for breakfast. However, when they reached the door, Yu leaned against the door and pricked up his ears to eavesdrop on the sounds in the room. Xiao Ichen also leaned forward. However, not long after, the door was suddenly opened. The 2 little lads failed miserably at such a simple task, and both of them fell in together. Xianxia was amused. She covered her mouth and laughed until she collapsed on the bed. With 2 children at home, she felt that every inch of her life was bright and sunny. Xiao Ichen and Yu were probably the best gifts that God had given her. In the dining room, Yu personally fed Wuxia a deep-fried dough stick. The latter took a bite. The golden skin was crispy and the inside was tender. It was indeed delicious. You made this? He asked in disbelief. Yu raised his eyebrows and was obviously very proud. Yes. Of course it was made by me. Mu Yazhou wasn't stingy with his praise. Your culinary skills are better than many chefs in star-rated restaurants. Oh, this is nothing. You haven't really experienced my culinary skills. You pretended to be reserved. Chapter 1402. After Yun Shirshir woke up, she received a call from her manager all of a sudden. Shirshir, are you feeling better? Yun Shirshir replied, yes, I'm feeling better. He heaved a sigh of relief, but his voice was filled with worry. Your phone has been switched off recently. It wasn't easy for me to get through to you. I asked Mu Shi, and she said that she couldn't reach you either. We were so worried. I'm sorry. Something happened at home recently. That's why it's been inconvenient for me to switch on my phone. Yun Shirshir felt extremely guilty. The manager sighed helplessly and said, it's okay. I thought something had happened to you, so I was worried. During this period, Yun Shirshir had disappeared from the face of the earth. She did not reply to any messages, and her phone was switched off when he called her. That was until Minyu sent someone to inform Ji Lin that Yun Shirshir was on leave. Only when the manager learned of this did he feel relieved. For the past 2 days, Yun Shirshir's phone had been switched on, so she replied to his messages. Qin Zhou, on the other hand, had been overseas for the past few days. The moment he returned, he turned on his phone and saw Yun Shirshir's reply in his inbox. He quickly called her back. After a pause, he asked in confusion, what happened at home? It's a long story. Yun Shirshir did not know how to start. Qin Zhou, however, was extremely sensitive and comforted her. It's okay if you don't want to talk about it. Artists need privacy and personal space too. I can understand that. Yes. Thank you, Qin Zhou. He asked, are you free recently? If you are, can you focus on your work now? While you were away, the studio accumulated a bunch of drafts waiting for you to destroy them. Yun Shirshir fell silent, as if she was facing a formidable enemy. Therefore, after breakfast, she hurried to the studio. The moment Qin Zhou saw her, he gave her a harsh scolding. Although his tone was gentle over the phone, he took the opportunity to give Yun Shirshir a good scolding. It was not because of anything else but because she had made him so worried, so he must teach her a lesson. Yun Shirshir's temper dissipated after being scolded. She sighed. Qin Zhou, I'm sorry. Something happened at home recently. That's not what I'm angry about. Qin Zhou snorted and said coldly, I'm angry because you didn't tell me what happened and made me so worried. I thought you had been kidnapped. Yun Shirshir fell silent. It's not that exaggerated. Why not? Qin Zhou rolled his eyes at her. Shirshir, you have to understand that I treat you like family. If you need anything, please let me know. Halfway through, his tone suddenly softened. Otherwise, you'll make me worry to death. I won't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Yun Shirshir's heart warmed as she sincerely said, Thank you, Qin Zhou. What are you thanking me for? Qin Zhou rolled his eyes at her and changed the topic. Let's not talk about this anymore. Have you finished reading the script? I did. Qin Zhou added, we're going to start filming soon. You have to be careful and show off your acting skills. Yun Shirshir kept it in mind. Naturally, Qin Zhou was not worried about her acting skills. Yun Shirshir's acting was not a problem for her to play the leading role in the production of Lethal Beauty. Oh right, do you know who the male lead of Lethal Beauty is? I don't know. Yun Shirshir shook her head blankly. Qin Zhou said, the first young actor in ancient costumes and the hottest young actor in Huanyu right now, Hua Jin. Chapter 1403. Hua Jin. Yun Shirshir took half a second to react. This name sounds familiar. Qin Zhou rolled his eyes helplessly. Sister, can you be more careful and take more remedial classes? Hua Jin is in the limelight now, okay? If he stands right in front of you and you don't recognize him, it will be very embarrassing. Yun Shirshir was speechless. Qin Zhou glanced at her and added, besides, Hua Jin's background isn't as simple as it seems. So you have to be more careful. Stay away from him on set and don't get too close to him. Yun Shirshir did not ask too much. She just followed whatever Qin Zhou said and did not ask why he said that this Hua Jin was not a simple person. She only thought that since Qin Zhou asked her to be more careful and avoid him, he must have his reasons. She just had to be obedient. Qin Zhou nodded in satisfaction. He especially liked this about Xianxia. No matter what he arranged or ordered her to do, she just did it obediently and rarely asked why. Even if she did, it was just a question out of curiosity. She never protested. She was a very obedient artist. She was very docile and did not have any sharp edges. In fact, she was probably the artist he had taken over the most. There were not many obedient artists in the entertainment industry. This showed that Xianxia had a lot of trust in him. He was very touched by this. Qin Zhou gave her some instructions. Hence, he asked her to wait for the makeup artist in the office. There was an exclusive interview with a fashion magazine in the afternoon. She was going to be interviewed and shoot a set of blockbusters. Xianxia nodded obediently. Qin Zhou went out. He had an appointment with a producer. There was a hit drama in the middle of filming and they were still short of a supporting role. Hence, he wanted to insert Xianxia into the cast so that she could be recognized. Although it was a supporting role, no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. More importantly, this hit drama had a good reputation. The ratings for the second part of the drama were still shocking and it was firmly in the top 2 spots in the charts. One had to know that many popular dramas would lose their popularity by the time the second part was filmed. The main point was that this hit drama was being filmed and broadcast at the same time. After filming this episode, after 2 weeks of post-production, it would be broadcast on TV. Qin Zhou naturally had his reasons for making such arrangements. Previously, Xianxia had become popular mainly because the team of The Green Apple had promoted her on Weibo by publishing behind-the-scenes footage. However, now that the filming of The Green Apple was completed and it was in post-production, there would be a long period of silence. Therefore, Qin Zhou naturally had to use some means to get some exposure for her. It was a good choice to play a supporting role in this popular drama. Most importantly, this supporting character's persona was very good at eating. If Xianxia could get this opportunity and participate in it, it would definitely increase her exposure. Of course, he was determined to win this negotiation. Therefore, he gave Xianxia a few instructions and left in a hurry. Xianxia stayed in the company to memorize the script. There was an exclusive interview in the afternoon with Bazaar Fashion. Hence, Bazaar naturally arranged for their own makeup artist to do her makeup. At noon, the makeup artist arrived. Xianxia saw a fashionable face. "Hello, I'm Andy, the chief stylist of Bazaar Fashion." Andy smiled at her, revealing a bright but stiff smile. Chapter 1404. Xianxia furrowed her brows and unwillingly reached out her hand to shake hers. However, the moment she held Andy's outstretched hand, she felt her grip tighten. Her grip was so strong that it almost deformed her hand. Xianxia instinctively flung her hand away. Looking up, she frowned and looked slightly unhappy. She felt that the smile on Andy's face was extremely stiff and didn't seem very friendly. However, this was only their first meeting. Why did she feel that Andy's gaze was filled with hostility? "What's the matter?" Andy saw that her expression was slightly cold and couldn't help but laugh. "Xianxia, your attitude doesn't seem very friendly. You're shaking my hand too hard." Xianxia paused and pursed her lips. "You're hurting me." However, Andy laughed and looked her up and down. She said in a neutral tone, I didn't expect that a newcomer who just debuted would put on such airs. Were you acting like a big shot in front of me just now? Forget it, there's no need for that." Acting like a big shot? Xianxia was stunned for a moment and quickly reacted. This arrogant stylist in front of her was mocking her. It looked like this stylist wasn't very friendly to her. Even though she didn't understand why this person called Andy had such a hostile attitude towards her. She spoke in a neutral tone and was so sarcastic. They were meeting for the first time, but she acted as if they were enemies. Was she crazy? Did she have a grudge against her? Or had she offended this person in the past and she couldn't remember? Xianxia quickly brushed off her humiliation with a smile and coldly said, "Even if you want to act like a big shot, you still have to look at your capabilities. Your words are too much." Yun Shirshir's words were very public and there wasn't anything wrong with her wording. However, when it came to Andy, she seemed to be deliberately twisting her words. She snorted coldly and said in a mocking tone, "Capital? You're a newcomer, what capital do you have to act like a big shot?" Yun Shirshir, I've been in the industry for so long and you're the smallest celebrity I've ever worked with. If it weren't for the chief editor's orders, do you think I would be willing to serve you? As soon as she said this, Yun Shirshir instantly understood. She was a very sensitive person, so she could tell from Andy's words that he was dissatisfied with her. Andy had humiliated her and treated her unkindly, not because she had a grudge against her, nor was it because she had offended her in the past. This Andy probably had a place in bizarre fashion. She claimed to be the chief stylist. Stylists with the title of chief must have a big background. Basically, only those who had participated in many fashion shows and received so many awards that their hands went numb were qualified to receive this title. Bizarre Fashion was one of the top international fashion magazines and had a place in the fashion industry. Most of the stylists under it had a strong background. Therefore, the stylist who was crowned with the title of chief was even more impressive. According to gossip, some chief stylists boasted of their high status and were very picky about the celebrities they served. Some stylists were even rejected by artists below the C-list level. This Andy looked very arrogant. The reason why she was so sarcastic to her was probably because she didn't want to be her stylist. After all, she had just debuted and acted in a movie and a few print advertisements. She wasn't very popular and didn't even have a high status. Chapter 1405. In other words, it was obvious that she despised Yun Shirshir because of her low status. Yun Shirshir's guess was correct. The reason why Andy was so hostile towards her was because she was unwilling to be the stylist of such a low-status artist. A newcomer who had just debuted could not even be considered a C-lister. Although she had been popular on Weibo for a while because of the hype created by the production team, she did not have a substantial reputation. After all, one's status was not determined by how popular one was on Weibo. It was determined by one's net worth. To put it bluntly, even if one was popular on Weibo, it would be useless if one was not popular in the industry. Yun Shirshir's current salary was only 5 figures for a single episode. If she met a big-shot production team, she might have to fork out resources. When Andy received this assignment, she was disgusted. She did not want to take on such a low-status artist. After she received this assignment, the other people in the company mocked her behind her back for a long time. When they heard that she was going to take on a low-status artist, many people made cynical remarks about her. Originally, with Yun Shirshir's status, there was no way she would be able to get an interview with Bazaar. This was mainly because Qin Zhou had added fuel to the fire behind the scenes. He had used the resources he had accumulated when he was managing Xianxia to secure this interview for Yun Shirshir. The chief editor had arranged for Andy to take over. Andy was furious. She rejected it again and again, but the interview had already been decided. There was no way she could reject it. After all, she was the chief stylist of Bazaar Fashion. The artistes she had taken care of were either superstar actresses, or even famous carpet stars. Yun Shirshir, on the other hand, was just a small fry who had popped out of nowhere. She had acted in a movie directed by Lin Fengtian. Now that the filming had finished and it was in post-production, the movie had not been released yet. No one knew how the box office would be after it was released and whether it would be a flop. However, these were not Andy's concerns. What she was concerned about was that Yun Shirshir did not care about fashion at all. Dressing like this for an interview with Bazaar was obviously an insult to her. In the fashion industry, many stylists and makeup artists were proud and arrogant. This was especially true for a famous stylist like Andy. If it was in the past, when some celebrities wanted to accept a fashion interview, they would have 3 layers of support and then dress up meticulously for the interview. What about her? She was wearing a simple dress and a knitted sweater. Her black hair was draped over her shoulders. Her attire couldn't be any lower. Andy only felt disgusted. Therefore, she was bent on disgusting her. Yun Shirshir was speechless. She quietly said, "I'm sorry. It's really hard for you to receive a small-time artist like me." His words were filled with bitterness, and there was even a hint of self-mockery. Andy was stunned. She thought that Xianxia would fly into a rage out of humiliation after being humiliated by her. In the end, she didn't seem to be angry, nor did she retort. Instead, she went along with her words and made a self-deprecating joke. Andy instantly lost his temper. What else could she say when the other party had already claimed to be a lowly celebrity? Thus, she asked coldly, "Have you hit your face?" Xianxia said, "I just finished eating." Andy was speechless. Chapter 1406. Andy's expression was especially displeased as she sneered, "Hey, are you deliberately making things difficult for me? You know that you're going to be interviewed and filmed in a blockbuster, so why don't you prepare your foundation first? Are you waiting for me to do it? I just received the notice of the interview at the last minute, so I didn't know about it beforehand." Xianxia paused for a moment, then said calmly, "Whether it's you or me, an interview is a job, so there's no need to be so aggressive with me. If you want me to prepare my foundation first, then I'll do it myself first and leave the rest to you." Although she said this, Andy didn't appreciate it at all. She rolled her eyes but didn't say anything sarcastic. However, her expression was still extremely cold. Xianxia went to the makeup room and started to carefully prepare her foundation. Her skin was very good. Like other artists, they couldn't wait to cover their faces with 5 layers of foundation. However, she only needed 1 layer and it would be perfect. Hence, Xianxia walked out very quickly. Andy was shocked. "Why are you so fast?" "It's already done." Andy frowned and said sarcastically, "You don't have to be so perfunctory, right? In any case, you're the one who needs to be filmed. Is it really okay to be so perfunctory? If the foundation isn't good, my makeup will be smudged when it's done. There are many ignorant people who think that they're born beautiful and don't need to prepare a foundation. In the end, didn't they end up in such a sorry state?" Xianxia raised her eyebrows. "Then Master Andy, do you want to see for yourself if my foundation passes?" Andy said impatiently, "Go sit in your seat. I'll do your makeup first. Anyway, it's your face in the mirror. Even if the foundation isn't done well, it has nothing to do with me." After saying this, she glanced at the corner of her eyes and signaled. Xianxia sat down obediently. Andy walked over and raised her head. She saw that elegant and refined face in the mirror. Clear, jade-like, flawless, beautiful. Although she had only put on a layer of foundation to balance her skin tone, she hadn't put on any makeup, and she hadn't even outlined her eyeliner. However, at first glance, her refined temperament was completely natural. She was like an otherworldly celestial in a painting, beautiful to the extreme. She suddenly felt a burning sensation on her face, as if she had been slapped. It was a slap in the face. At this time, she had no choice but to admit that some people were really born beautiful. Even if it was just a thin layer, it could still shine brightly. Andy bit her lip unwillingly and began to put on her makeup. Even though she had some prejudices against Xianxia, Andy was very professional when it came to styling. Although she had always been arrogant, she was very dedicated and professional when it came to her career. When it came to professionalism, her attitude was serious, and she could not afford to be careless. This time, the style used for the interview was pure and innocent. Therefore, Andy used Japanese crystal nude makeup for her. However, nude makeup required the most exquisite technique and foundation. Whether it was the eyeliner or the blush, it had to be extremely natural and fresh. Therefore, when the makeup was done, Xianxia in the mirror presented a different kind of beauty. Pure and beautiful. Every frown and smile revealed a kind of youthful sweetness. Chapter 1407. Andy looked at the beautiful woman in the mirror. For a moment, her heart was filled with jealousy and disgust. The disdain in her eyes became more obvious. "Xianxia, do you know why I hate you so much?" Andy suddenly looked at the person in the mirror and asked coldly. Xianxia was stunned and confused. She shook her head blankly. Andy's words were sharp and vicious. "I hate you not because of your low status, but because of your disgusting ambition and face." She had always been a straightforward person. If there was something on her mind, she would say it. She didn't like to hide anything. Yun Shirshir asked calmly. Ambition? I admit that you are very beautiful and have outstanding innate qualities. Also, I've seen your performance and your acting is indeed very powerful. But in my life, what I hate the most are female celebrities who do anything to get to the top. After she finished speaking, her eyes were filled with an overbearing sharpness that was extremely sharp. Yun Shirshir smiled faintly. I don't know what you're talking about. Seeing her attitude, Andy was even more certain that she was like what she had imagined. She would use any means to create hype and get to the headlines. Her impression of her fell to the bottom. She went straight to the point and asked, You're the one who created the rumor about you and Gu Xianxia, aren't you? You're so scheming. Andy sighed and narrowed her eyes. Her eyes were filled with disgust. There are many people like you in the entertainment industry. Just because you're in the same movie as Xianxia, you're starting to think that you're infallible. You've just debuted and you're already thinking of climbing up the social ladder? Recently, the rumor about you and Xianxia has been spreading like wildfire. I think you must have taken a fancy to Xianxia's unshakable popularity and used it to create hype for yourself. Moreover, you shamelessly tied yourself to Xianxia to get to the top. How can you be so disgusting? From the beginning to the end, Yun Shirshir only looked at her calmly. After listening to her in one breath, she suddenly smiled. You don't have to be so agitated, do you? Yun Shirshir looked at her through the mirror and suddenly smiled, but exposed her. You're so excited. You must like Xianxia, right? Andy's face turned red as she angrily rebuked, Don't talk nonsense. Is that so? Yun Shirshir, however, smiled with interest. But, I see that you're so excited. If I didn't know, I would think that I stole your boyfriend. Shut up. Andy flew into a rage out of humiliation. Don't make wild guesses. I don't treat Xianxia the way you described. Yun Shirshir glanced at her and actually thought that this Andy was so awkward that it was adorable. His words clearly revealed his fanatical worship and yearning for Gu Xianxia, as if he was a god, but his words were extremely awkward and he refused to admit it. Then why are you so agitated? Besides, how do you know it's a publicity stunt? What if Xianxia and I are a couple? Yun Shirshir deliberately teased her. However, Andy was more innocent than she thought. When she heard Yun Shirshir's teasing words, she immediately exploded. What? You're dating Xianxia? Yun Shirshir deliberately kept her in suspense. This has nothing to do with you. How does it have nothing to do with me? Tell me, what's your relationship with Xianxia? Andy was so nervous that her face turned red and she looked like she was about to cry. Chapter 1408. It's a secret. After saying that, she stood up and went to change her clothes. Andy was left standing on the spot with a sullen expression, clenching her fists in anger. The chief editor of the interview quickly rushed over with the cameraman. First, they shot a set of fashion photos for Yun Shirshir in the studio. Yun Shirshir changed into a pink floral gown from Chanel's spring collection. She wore a flower crown on her head, had wavy hair, and wore a pair of red high heels. She looked sweet. Previously, when she was undergoing training at Huanyu, Yun Shirshir had a strong sense of being in front of the camera. Now, standing in front of the camera, she was able to move freely. Every pose did not require much explanation. She could naturally express the ideal state that the cameraman wanted to express. At times, she would hold the photo frame and rub her hair lazily with one hand. She would pout and pretend to be annoyed. At times, she would hold a lollipop in her hand and widen her beautiful eyes in surprise. She looked playful and cute. At other times, she would lean lazily against the wall, her curly hair slanting over her round shoulders and the corners of her eyes slightly curved. The cameraman took a few sets of shots in a row. During the intermission, he held the camera and browsed through the photos taken, but he could not bear to delete a few. Her performance was too good. She was blessed with beauty and performance. At this moment, only one word came to his mind. God's favorite. God doted on her too much and gave her such perfect looks. Standing at the side, Andy's mind was blank. Her thoughts were still stuck on Yun Shirshir's purposefully mysterious words. What if Xianxia and I are a couple? What does that mean? What is her relationship with Gu Xianxia? Are they really a couple? That's impossible. Xianxia was famous in the industry for keeping women at arm's length. He was quite cold and ascetic. There were almost no women around him. Apart from some groundless rumors, most of them were created by the women. He was a rare and high-quality idol. Many people in the industry even suspected that he was gay. So much so that after so many years in the industry, almost every woman who acted with him had a clean relationship with him. This was simply a wonder in the industry. However, when Andy thought about it, he was stunned. Xianxia had been involved in a few scandals, but they were all created by the woman. In the end, Xianxia's studio came forward to clarify the matter. However, this time, Xianxia's studio did not do anything about the scandal with Xianxia. Instead, they cooperated with Xianxia's team to hype up their relationship. This would have been impossible in the past. With such an ambiguous attitude, it was hard not to think of something. Could it be that what Xianxia said was true? Was she really dating Xianxia? Andy's eyes shone as she looked at Xianxia, who was in the studio, continuously matching the photographer's style. The sweet and gentle smile on her face was clearly that of a woman deeply in love. Could it be true? Andy's heart skipped a beat, and he began to fidget. In fact, the reason why she was so concerned about this problem was that she had been in love with Xianxia for a long time. From the first time she met Xianxia, she was infatuated with this aloof and handsome man and regarded him as her Adonis. Chapter 1409. Andy had silently supported him since he was a popular young actor when he first debuted to the current popular Heavenly King. But now, the man she could only wish for was actually in a relationship with another woman. She was naturally upset. Bizarre Fashion Editor, did you accept the role of the Green Apple by chance or coincidence? Xianxia, at that time, the Green Apple, was holding a national audition for the female lead. Coincidentally, I was selected by director Lin and accepted the role. Bizarre Fashion Editor, which character do you like the most in this script? Xianxia, I prefer Xianxia. Bizarre Fashion Editor, why? What is it about this character that attracts you? Xianxia, Xianxia is a very pure character. She is a stubborn person. Love is love. If you love someone, you will give it your all, even if you have to make the whole world your enemy. Her stubbornness and infatuation move me. Bizarre Fashion Editor, have you read the original novel before accepting the role? Xianxia, I have read the original novel. It is very well written. I stayed up late to finish reading it. Bizarre Fashion Editor, when you read the novel, did you ever think that you would be playing your favorite character one day? Xianxia, I didn't think of that. Bizarre Fashion Editor, compared to reading a novel, how does acting feel? Xianxia, reading a novel and acting are two different concepts. When you read a novel, you will be immersed in the world of the novel. You will be influenced by the love and hate entanglements. You will be immersed in it and your emotions will follow the plot closely. However, when you act in a movie, it is different. Every detail had to be carefully grasped. Every emotion had to be placed in the shoes of the character and brought into the plot to enrich it. Bizarre Fashion Editor, did you do any preparation before filming? Xianxia, what kind of preparation? Bizarre Fashion Editor, just some preparation for the role? Xianxia, I read the script carefully a few times. Bizarre Fashion Editor, was Xianxia's role challenging in The Green Apple? Xianxia, it was alright. Bizarre Fashion Editor, how did you figure out the character's inner world? Xianxia, try your best to immerse yourself in the character's inner world. Bizarre Fashion Editor-in-Chief, do you have any expectations for this movie? The interview progressed step by step. Xianxia faced the camera, held the microphone, and patiently answered every question, whether it was friendly or harsh. Some answers were memorized in advance, and some needed to be improvised. However, she didn't memorize any of them. She just acted as she pleased. Therefore, Bizarre's chief editor was a little dissatisfied. Her answer was so empty and casual. There was almost no explosive point, no gimmick. This interview was clearly given a script. Why didn't Xianxia follow the script? Such an interview had no effect at all. Thus, the editor-in-chief suddenly threw out a sensitive question. In the movie, you and Xianxia acted as a couple. How's your relationship outside the movie? As soon as she finished speaking, Xianxia frowned. Andy, who was standing at the side and listening silently, felt his nerves jump. Almost with a swoosh, he turned his gaze to her. Xianxia was silent for a while before replying indifferently, "Pretty good." The editor-in-chief broke out in a cold sweat. "What do you mean by pretty good?" Chapter 14:10. Xianxia smiled and said, "Outside of filming, Xianxia is a senior who takes good care of his juniors. He gives me a lot of pointers. Sometimes, when there are areas where I'm lacking in filming, he would patiently point it out." The chief editor was dissatisfied with her ambiguous answer, so she threw another bombshell and pursued relentlessly. Obviously, she was deliberately creating a gimmick. "Is Xianxia your ideal type?" As soon as she said this, even Xianxia was stunned. She looked at the chief editor who asked the question and saw the burning desire in her eyes, as well as ambition. She suddenly understood the chief editor's intention. It was obvious that she had set up so many difficult questions so that she could get an explosive answer from her mouth. This question was extremely tricky. If she answered, yes. Then, following this topic, the chief editor would throw out more difficult questions, and even some disgusting ones. If she answered, no, then this answer might not be too offensive. Moreover, the production team and crew had recently been hyping up the scandal between her and Xianxia to gain popularity. Although this method was somewhat despicable, it was Qin Zhou's method and also the studio's plan. If she ruined it, Qin Zhou would definitely give her a scolding. Xianxia pondered for a moment and then gave an almost impeccable answer. "I believe that Xianxia is the ideal type in the hearts of many girls." Her answer was so cunning that the chief editor couldn't find any fault with it, let alone find a way to start. Andy, on the other hand, was stunned. She thought that Xianxia would definitely use this topic to hype up the scandal between her and Xianxia. She didn't expect her to perfectly avoid this topic. She couldn't help but look at Xianxia suspiciously. She felt that this person was very strange. She clearly had such a good opportunity to create hype, but she didn't do it. What was the meaning of this? Could it be that she was playing hard to get? The chief editor was obviously very angry, and he continued to throw out one difficult question after another. "Then, do you think Xianxia is your type?" "Of course. In the movie, I played Yin Xiaochuan and chased him so hard. Do you think Xianxia is a perfect idol?" "Without a doubt, he is a perfect idol and a respectable senior." The chief editor was once again rendered speechless by her reply. "Do you think you're Xianxia's ideal type?" "Well, you'll have to ask Senior Xianxia. In the movie, Yang Mi's character has many scenes with Xianxia. Between you and Yang Mi, who do you think is closer to his ideal type?" "I'll do it." The chief editor's eyes lit up. This Xianxia actually dared to answer in such a way. Yang Chang was her senior, and she actually dared to disrespect her senior. This answer was really explosive. Thus, she kissed him relentlessly. But with a mischievous smile, Xianxia begged for mercy, "Because we're acting as a couple. Please don't break us up, okay?" The chief editor didn't know whether to laugh or cry at her witty reply. She was angry and speechless. But when she looked at Xiaoxia's mischievous begging for mercy, she couldn't get angry no matter what. This artiste was probably the most helpless artiste she had ever interviewed. Chapter 14:11. But this girl didn't know how to go with the flow. She couldn't be blamed. When the interview ended, she couldn't help but say, "Xianxia, I gave you a chance, but you didn't know how to make use of it. What a waste of your manager's efforts to ask me to take care of you. You don't know how to take advantage of the situation. It would be a miracle if you could become famous." Xianxia smiled and said, "Thank you for your kind words. If the movie is released and the box office is a hit, I'll treat you to tea." The editor-in-chief was completely speechless, but she was also touched by her honest and cute side. Her unpretentious manner was rare in the entertainment industry. Andy was about to leave when she suddenly thought of something. She walked up to Xianxia with a hostile expression. Xianxia looked at her warily. Just as she thought that she was going to make things difficult for her, Andy asked suspiciously, "Just now, why didn't you answer according to the script?" "What?" Don't play dumb. Andy carried her bag and looked cold and arrogant. I just secretly looked at the interview draft. The script was obviously mainly about the rumored relationship between you and Xianxia. Why didn't you answer according to the script and deviated from the main topic? She had just seen the interview draft. The main topic of the interview, other than promoting the movie, was mainly about her and Gu Xingzia's recent rumored relationship. In the end, her few replies deviated from the main topic. The editor-in-chief was so angry that she didn't know what to ask in the end. Previously, in Andy's eyes, Xianxia was a shrewd newcomer. As a newcomer who had just debuted, she had accepted a role in a film directed by Lin Fengtian. She even had a hot scandal with Gu Xingzia that swept the hot search list on Weibo. If she wasn't scheming and shrewd, how could she have made it this far? She had entered the entertainment industry, and now, she knew how muddy the waters were. She knew that in a place like the entertainment industry, not many female celebrities were quiet. Most of them had sugar daddies supporting them. Xianxia was no exception. She had also thought that Xianxia was a scheming woman who wanted to make use of Gu Xingzia to gain popularity. She thought that Xianxia was a white lotus who would do anything to gain popularity. She clearly had such a good opportunity, but she didn't take advantage of it. This made her a little confused. Xianxia's face was cold as she said truthfully, because I forgot to memorize the script. Andy was stunned for a moment before he flew into a rage out of humiliation. You forgot to memorize the script? Please. Do you not value this interview that much? An exclusive interview with Bazaar Fashion was a symbol of status in the industry. Many female stars could only dream of it. Xianxia had Qin Zhou as her backer, so she was accepted as an exception. She was given an interview script, but she didn't memorize it? There was such a thing? Xianxia said indifferently, it's not that I don't pay enough attention to it. That is, I just don't like acting in real life. Andy was completely stunned. Xianxia continued, acting is my job. Work is work, but in reality, I want to stay true to myself. I don't want to be an actress in real life. After she finished speaking, there was a dead silence. Andy looked at her in shock. She didn't expect her to answer like this. After a long silence that felt like a century, Andy suddenly burst out laughing. What are you laughing at? She asked suspiciously. Chapter 14:12. Andy replied, You're really? I've been in the industry for so many years, but I've never seen such a strange artiste like you. She actually said that she didn't want to act outside of work. But wasn't the entertainment industry like this? Although it looked glamorous on the surface, many sugar daddies despised the male and female artistes in the entertainment industry. This was because once they entered the entertainment industry, they had to wear a mask for the rest of their lives. Acting in front of fans, acting in front of the director, and acting in front of the audience. What was even more ridiculous was that some female artistes and male artistes got married because of benefits. After they got married, they went their separate ways and each had their own sugar daddies. Could you imagine that? Facing the person whom she had been with for her entire life, she still had an ambiguous relationship with her sugar daddies. Her worldview was completely turned upside down. Hence, from what she knew, Xianxia should be such a woman. She especially despised her. Xianxia had completely changed her worldview. She obviously had the chance, but she didn't take advantage of it. She was different from those female artistes who used all their effort and schemes to get to the top. Andy had initially thought that Xianxia was acting in front of her. However, after this short period of interaction, her gaze never left her. She couldn't tell that she was acting at all. She was a very straightforward woman. She had been in the industry for so many years and had already trained her sharp eyes. She could tell if someone was acting or not. Xianxia was a woman who didn't act at all. Hence, she had become a fan of Xianxia. Putting everything else aside, just the fact that Xianxia didn't bother to use Gu Xingzia to create hype was enough for her to admire her. Hence, Andy suddenly pursed her lips awkwardly and said a little guiltily, Xianxia, I'm sorry. Previously, I thought that you were like those women in the entertainment industry who used all their effort to get to the top. I've wronged you. If I've offended you earlier, please forgive me. Yun Shirshir curved her lips and then laughed nonchalantly. Ha! It's nothing. If I must apologize, I want to apologize to you too. Andy raised his eyebrows, but he didn't understand what she meant. Yun Shirshir confessed. Actually, Gu Xianxia and I are not a couple. I said that on purpose. Andy was a little surprised. No reason. Yun Shirshir cocked a brow and plainly added, I just want you to know that speaking irresponsibly is actually very hurtful. As soon as she said this, Andy was stunned, as if her heart had been pierced by her words. Her expression changed slightly, but there was a hint of guilt and shame. She understood Yun Shirshir's intention. He wanted her to put herself in his shoes and feel how hateful it was to speak irresponsibly. From the moment they first met, she had malicious speculations about Yun Shirshir. She even used sharp and humiliating words to mock, insult, and slander her. Perhaps she couldn't feel how hurtful her words in front of Yun Shirshir were. Hence, Yun Shirshir deliberately twisted the truth to make her feel uncomfortable. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said those irresponsible words and maliciously speculated about you. Andy apologized sincerely. She was a magnanimous and straightforward person who spoke her mind. If she was right, she was right. If she was wrong, she would admit it. However, Yun Shirshir didn't take it to heart. She shook her head and said, It's okay. We can be friends in the future. Chapter 14:13. She felt that Andy was a good person. Even though Andy had a bad impression of her when they first met, she still did a good job styling her. This at least showed that she wasn't a bad person and was very responsible. Just this point alone proved that she was a person worth befriending. Moreover, after Andy realized her mistake, she apologized sincerely. Yun Shirshir was very touched. Yun Shirshir reached out her hand to her. Andy lowered his eyes and looked at her deeply. Then, he smiled faintly and took the hand that she offered to him. They held each other's hands tightly. Okay. Before leaving, Andy suddenly asked worriedly, Are you and Xianxia really not in a relationship? Yun Shirshir was defeated. She surrendered helplessly. Please. I never lie. If I'm not, then I'm not. There's no need to lie to you, right? Then, can I ask for some gossip? Andy leaned closer to her curiously. Does Xianxia have a girlfriend? I don't think so. Yun Shirshir said. Don't think so? She was a little doubtful. Yun Shirshir said carefully, I don't think so. At least she hadn't heard of it. Xianxia and I aren't that close. Andy nodded. Her face was full of joy and her heart was jumping with joy. Shirshir, thank you. Andy thanked him from the bottom of his heart. Then he blew a kiss and left. In the afternoon, Xianxia rushed back after receiving a call from Chief Editor Baza. The moment he got back, he gave Yun Shirshir a dressing down. Do you know how hard it was for me to get you Bazaar's resources? Didn't you have interview drafts for you to memorize? Didn't you memorize them? I stayed up late to write those drafts for you. I even worked hard to highlight the key points. In the end, you didn't even read them. What were your answers? Xianxia was furious. Originally, the matter of the supporting role in the hit drama had been finalized. This was something to be happy about. On the way back, he received a call from the chief editor. She complained about Yun Shirshir's uncooperative interview. Xianxia was very hurt. Bazaar's interview wasn't something that anyone could do. No matter how many female celebrities tried their best, they might not even be able to get half a page. One had to know that Yun Shirshir had just debuted. She didn't have a high status or a high net worth. She was able to get into Bazaar all because of his skills and resources. It was all because of him that she was able to get this interview. In the end, when it came to her, her answer was so willful. The chief editor was so angry that she wanted to cry and laugh at the same time, but she was helpless. Yun Shirshir looked at Xianxia pitifully, but she obediently allowed him to criticize her without retorting. Shirshir, the scandal between you and Xianxia was planned by both our teams. Moreover, we followed your suggestion back then and you didn't object to it too much. But why didn't you cherish such an opportunity when it was right in front of you? So many artists want to get a share of Xianxia's popularity, but none of them are lucky enough to do so. You have it, so why don't you cherish it? Xianxia was puzzled. Yun Shishir said unwillingly, because I want to rely on my own strength. I don't want to use Xianxia to climb up. Qin Zhou was taken aback by her sincere explanation. After a while, he looked at her helplessly and sighed. I know how you feel, but the entertainment industry has such rules. You have to follow them. Chapter 14:14. It was not that easy to carve out a bloody path in the entertainment industry. Moreover, there was no such thing as relying solely on one's ability to make a name for oneself. You should know that I've said before that I've poured a lot of ambition into you. I hope that you can cooperate with me. I've made Xianxia famous, and my goal is to help you become one of the best in the industry. But you're putting me in a difficult position. He said this earnestly as his eyes fell on her. They were very deep and heavy. The meaning behind his words was profound. Yun Shishir suddenly fell silent. Qin Zhou continued, First of all, I've been in the industry for so long. I have many ways to protect you. You don't have to worry about the unspoken rules in the industry. You don't have to accompany me to bed, to dinner, to have fun, or to drink with me. What you need to do, other than relying on your ability, is to cooperate with me. She suddenly said unwillingly, Actually, I don't understand. Xianxia has been in the industry for so long, 10 years, and there have never been any scandals about him. He's so popular because of his ability, isn't it? Why can he do it but I can't? Why could Gu Xingzi become a high-quality idol without any scandals? Why couldn't she? She couldn't figure it out. Silly girl, it's because men and women are different in the entertainment industry. But Qin Zhou explained patiently, in the entertainment industry, most of the consumers are women. Generally speaking, women have many beautiful fantasies about their idols. Most of them see their idols as the prince charming of their dreams, the nation's husband. Have you ever seen a woman who wants her husband to have an entangled scandal with another woman? When he said this, Yun Shishir suddenly understood. Oh, but women are different. Since women are the main consumers, if a female artist wants to gain exposure other than relying on her beauty and acting skills, she also has to create a persona. Do you know what else she has to rely on? I understand. She has to satisfy the public's curiosity. Yun Shishir replied. Qin Zhou smiled in relief. You're not too stupid. Women love to watch the fun and gossip. If there was a female celebrity who was entangled with the male idol in their hearts, they would definitely pay a lot of attention to that female celebrity. This way we'll have more exposure. But we'll definitely face a lot of serious injuries and malicious speculation. Just like Andy today. That's understandable. Qin Zhou smiled, but he didn't deny it. He said frankly, in the initial stage of this hype, you'll suffer a lot of malicious slander. Putting everything else aside, just your Weibo alone will definitely be crushed by Xianxia's army of fans. So, during this time, don't go on Weibo and read the comments. It would have been better if he hadn't said anything. Once he did, Yun Shishir felt terrified. Gu Xingzi's fans were known as the United Nations Army. The reason for this description was that Gu Xingzi's fans came from different nationalities. There was a huge number of them and it was a spectacular sight. It was said that he had broken the record of 100 million fans. 100 million. This was just the number of fans registered on the official website. Those who had not been recorded yet were not included. With such terrifying data, Yun Shishir naturally felt an inexplicable fear. Shishir, I want you to understand something. Chapter 14:15. Yun Shishir shook her head blankly. I don't know. She couldn't understand the meaning behind Qin Zhou's words. He commented, it's because it's not like Starbucks, which is widely known but not famous. Qin Zhou suddenly said, let's make an assumption then. Suppose one day, Xianxia came to this shop on a whim, ordered this cup of coffee, took a photo, and posted it online. Then, wouldn't this cup of coffee attract a lot of attention? This is exposure and the effect of fans. This way, Xianxia's fans will notice this coffee shop. They might even come and order the same coffee as Xianxia, and this shop will become famous. Yun Shishir suddenly understood what Qin Zhou was trying to say. Qin Zhou continued to explain, maybe Gu Xing's fans have a bad attitude when they come into contact with you. But at least they're paying attention to you. If you do well enough and the fans see it, they'll turn from haters to fans. However, if you don't expose this piece of jade, there will never be a day where you will be noticed by others. The entertainment industry is full of talents. You've just debuted, so you have to find more opportunities to show yourself and get the public's approval. After a pause, he added, so, the so-called hype is just a chance for the public to pay attention to you and give you a chance to show yourself. Do you understand? Xianxia nodded. I understand. Qin Zhou held her shoulders with a serious expression and said in a deep voice, listen, Xianxia. Many times, an artist is like a product, and a product needs marketing and packaging. You should understand this principle. So, you have to follow my orders in the future. Don't worry, I won't harm you. Xianxia was silent for a long time before she nodded slowly. I understand, Qin Zhou. I'll do my best to cooperate with you in the future. Yes. Only then did Qin Zhou nod with a smile. He raised his hand to rub her head and patted it gently, as if he was an elder caring for a junior. Xianxia, sometimes you're really smart. You understand what I'm saying to you immediately. You're a good learner. After Xianxia left the company, she was still thinking about Qin Zhou's words. There's no such thing as fairness in this circle. There's only the law of the jungle. It's a simple and crude principle. I hope you understand. Deep down, she was actually very unwilling to create a scandal with Gu Xingzi. The reason was because she felt that it would be very troublesome for her. Obviously, there was no such thing, but she had to use it to create public opinion and achieve the goal of creating a publicity stunt. It was really quite despicable. However, it seemed that this was the rule of the circle. If they didn't follow it, they would face the danger of being eliminated. In that case, she should also put down those thoughts that she shouldn't have and follow Qin Zhou's orders to do everything well. Xianxia had just walked out of the company when the driver had not arrived yet. His phone suddenly rang. She picked up the phone, and a charming and sexy voice came from the other end. Baby, where are you? His deep and magnetic words tugged at her heartstrings. Xianxia was shocked. She glanced at the caller ID and realized that it was from an unknown number. She asked warily, Who are you? Chapter 14:16. Xianxia was stunned for a moment before she chuckled. Xiao Jie, it's you? I didn't recognize you just now. Sorry. Sis, where are you now? I'll treat you to a cup of tea. I'm at the office. Gong Jie asked for the address and said that he would be there soon. In less than 10 minutes, a Porsche stopped at the entrance. Gong Jie opened the car door and got out. He walked in front of Xianxia and gave her a gentlemanly bow. He kissed her cheek. Beautiful lady, sorry to keep you waiting. Xianxia giggled and looked at him. You've learned the etiquette quite well. Where did you learn it? Gong Jie smiled warmly and explained, When I was young, I learned it from my family's etiquette teacher. Not long after he returned to the Gong family, he began to learn the etiquette of the upper class. As one of the heirs of the Gong family, it was necessary for him to have excellent aristocratic etiquette. Gong Jie asked gently, Sis, I'll treat you to a cup of tea. Do you have a place to recommend? The adoration in his words was obvious. Just as Yu had said, even Gong Jie himself did not realize that he was a senior Sister Khan. He lowered his head and looked at Xianxia with eyes that hid too much tenderness. If his subordinates were to see this scene, they would definitely be shocked. One had to know that in their eyes, Gong Jie was an extremely cold and scheming person. He rarely smiled, but when he did, the shrewd and scheming glint in his eyes would make one's hair stand on end and shudder in fear. Probably, no one had ever seen him show such a gentle and doting smile to anyone. His eyes, which were usually cold and stern, were slightly curved at this moment, as if many small stars were hidden in them. His handsome eyes were like stars. They were really like stars. Xianxia looked at him and could not help but fall into a daze. She still remembered that when she was young, she and Gong Jie stood together. Many people said that they looked very similar, as if they were cast from the same mold. The adults all said that it was rare to see twins that looked so similar, especially those eyes. They were exactly the same. At that time, she had also cut her hair short and wore the same clothes as the Gongjie. When they stood together, it was impossible to tell who was who. They even made a lot of jokes. She remembered that her mother had once bathed her. After she was done, she went out to sign for a package and came back to bathe her again. In the end, she realized that she had mistaken her for Xiaojie, so she washed her face again. There were many such blunders because she looked too similar to Gongjie. Even after so many years, when she stood next to him, she still had the illusion that she was looking into a mirror. The only difference was that Gongjie had an arrogant and fierce aura. His hairstyle was different, and his figure was different as well. However, their faces were very similar. Therefore, she could even see the shadows of Yu Yu and Xiao Yichen in his eyes. Genes were really a mysterious thing. When Gongjie saw that she kept staring at his face, he could not help but touch his face and raise his eyebrows suspiciously. "Why do you keep staring at me?" "It's nothing." Xianxia paused for a moment and laughed. "It's just that I found something rather strange." "What is it?" "Look at your eyes. They're so beautiful." Chapter 14:17. Xianxia slowly inched closer to him. "Your eyes are exactly the same as mine. Just like when we were young, everyone said that our eyes are very similar." After saying that, she smiled and gently held his handsome face. She intimately touched the tip of his nose and gently rubbed against it. Gongjie's heart softened and his face turned red. The redness spread from his ears all the way to his cheeks. His heart felt as if it had been pierced open and a warm current was slowly flowing into it. Such an intimate action made him feel emotional all of a sudden. When they were young, their mother liked to rub their noses intimately. Xianxia, on the other hand, often did such intimate actions with him. In his memories, he could still remember that short and happy time. He and Xianxia hid under the blanket. At that time, the winter was very cold and there was no electric blanket. The two little guys pitifully hugged the hot water bottle to sleep. In the middle of the night, the hot water bottle turned cold. They woke up from the cold and shivered under the blanket. They hugged each other pitifully to warm each other. Their days were a little difficult. However, there was a plain happiness amidst the bitterness. Thinking of this, Gongjie said, "Because you're my older sister and I'm your younger brother." After pausing for a moment, a trace of pride appeared on his face. "When we were young, no one could tell who was me and who was you." "You're still talking about it? When you did something wrong when we were young, when wasn't I the one who took the blame for you?" Xianxia suddenly complained, feeling wronged. Gongjie's expression was a little awkward. He apologized weakly, "Sis, I'm sorry. I was wrong." After saying that, he even tugged at the corner of her shirt coquettishly. Xianxia was tickled by his careful attempt to curry favor with her. She giggled and then said, "All right. It's been so long. I don't blame you anymore." After saying that, she couldn't help but reach out and touch the tip of his nose. "Let's go. I'll treat you to a cup of tea. I know a dessert shop that tastes good. She used to bring you there often." But Gongjie helped her into the car and drove away. Just as the car left, not far away, behind the shadow of a tree, a sneaky figure suddenly appeared. It was a paparazzi who was crouching with a camera. Using the shadow of the tree as cover, no one noticed him at all. Even Gongjie, who was used to being vigilant, didn't notice him. He had been in the industry for many years and was an experienced paparazzi. In order to capture some private shots of celebrities, he would do anything. He lowered his head and flipped through the photo album. He had captured all the intimate scenes between Xianxia and Gongjie, frame by frame. Some of the angles were so tricky that at first glance, one would think that the two were kissing intimately. It was not a waste. He had not squatted for so long. It was not a waste of effort. In fact, he had squatted near the entrance of Huanyu Entertainment. He had initially wanted to take some shots of Gu Xingzi. However, he didn't manage to capture Gu Xingzi. Instead, he managed to capture Xianxia. He even managed to capture some valuable shots. In fact, Xianxia's shots weren't that expensive. If they were sold to some media, they probably wouldn't be able to fetch a high price. However, that was in the past. It was different now. Now, Yun Shirshir was Gu Xingzi's rumored lover. Moreover, the shots he had taken were very gimmicky. They might be worth some money. Chapter 14:18. Yun Shirshir brought Gong Jie to the dessert shop that she used to frequent. It was a very small shop. Unlike the dessert shops in the downtown area, there were a lot of people, but the decoration was very stylish. Therefore, the customers who patronized were all regular customers. Yun Shirshir chose a private room and ordered a few signature desserts. Gong Jie rested his chin on one hand and quietly watched her every move. Even if he just looked at her like this, every frown and every smile was enjoyable. After Yun Shirshir finished ordering desserts, she turned around and saw him staring at her in a daze. She couldn't help but smile. "Why do you keep staring at me?" Gong Jie said willfully, "I like it." Yun Shirshir smiled helplessly. Gong Jie said again, "Because I feel like I can't get enough of you. We've been separated for so long. It's been 15 years. I want to make up for all that I've missed in 15 years. Gong Jie said truthfully. Yun Shirshir's heart skipped a beat, and her eyes became as gentle as water. "Xiao Jie, I'm very happy and very touched. I never dared to think that I would meet you again in this life." Gong Jie's eyes flashed, and then there was a hint of loneliness in them. He always felt that he seemed to have missed out on a lot of beautiful things. No matter how he tried to make up for it, he felt that this gap was difficult to make up for. The person he loved the most in his heart didn't leave behind any fragments of him in these 15 years. He didn't participate in her youth, didn't participate in her beautiful years, and missed the most important scenes in her life. He was absent from her life, and she was also absent from his life. In these 15 years, they had lost too many things. The desserts were served one after another. Yun Shirshir pushed a tiramisu in front of him and smiled. "Try it. The desserts here are amazing." "Okay." Gong Jie nodded and then picked up the spoon to taste it. "How's the taste?" she asked expectantly. Gong Jie nodded slowly. With the spoon in his mouth, his eyes curved slightly. "Not bad. It's very sweet." In fact, he didn't like desserts that much. In the Gong family, he didn't even look at the desserts in the afternoon. "I'm sick of it." However, Yun Shirshir ordered something different. He liked it. He liked to enjoy every moment with her. Even if he didn't do anything and just looked at her like this, he wouldn't feel bored. Yun Shirshir's gaze suddenly fell on his phone screen that had lit up. It was a rather unique phone. She said it was unique because she had never seen this brand before. It was also a unique style. Out of curiosity, she took it and looked at it. "What brand is your phone? Why haven't I seen it before?" Gong Jie smiled. "This is a satellite phone that we developed ourselves. You can't buy it." Because of his work, he used a satellite phone, which was developed internally by Hurricane Group. Many mobile phones on the market now have security risks. Therefore, the mobile phone he used was a system developed by the company, which was highly confidential. She tapped on it. Unknowingly, the wallpaper on the phone had been changed to the photos she took. Yun Shirshir saw it and blushed. She looked up and said angrily, Your wallpaper? When did you change it?" "I changed it a long time ago." Gong Jie smiled slightly. "I like your photos the most. They're very beautiful." That day, after he found out about her identity, he went back and searched for many of her photos and fashion shows like a crazy man. Chapter 14:19. Yun Shirshir blushed. To be honest, she was quite embarrassed that her portrait was being used as wallpaper. It was quite embarrassing. Hence, she said quietly, "Change it." Gong Jie was slightly surprised and asked suspiciously, "Why do you want to change it?" "It feels so embarrassing." Yun Shirshir covered her face, but she couldn't hide her blushing cheeks. Gong Jie was stunned for a moment, but he couldn't help but laugh. He raised his eyebrows in amusement and said, "Umph. It turns out that sister can feel embarrassed too." "Xiao Jie." Yun Shirshir pretended to be angry and pouted, but her eyes were smiling. "Change it. It feels so embarrassing." Gong Jie obviously didn't think much of it. He smiled and said, "What's there to be embarrassed about? Sister is so beautiful." I changed my phone wallpaper to yours because I want to see you every night before I go to bed. The first person I see when I wake up is also you. Yun Shirshi's face turned even redder when he said that. She lowered her eyes and covered her face, but she looked extremely charming. Gong Jie looked at her. He didn't know why, but he felt a little jealous of Yu. This kid had kept him in the dark for so long. He had joined the Hurricane group more than a year ago, but he didn't expect that this kid, who was hailed as a genius of the century, was actually his little nephew. However, even though he felt that it was unfair, he thought about it again. He wasn't by her side, but Yun Shirshir was silently protected by this kid. He felt satisfied again. Just like that, the two of them spent the whole afternoon at the dessert station. The two of them chatted casually, but most of the time, Yun Shirshir was talking. Gong Jie sat opposite her, resting his chin on one hand and listening quietly. However, Yun Shirshir had always avoided talking about what happened when she was 18. She also avoided talking about Yu's biological father. Since she didn't take the initiative to talk about it, Gong Jie didn't ask either. In fact, he had the means to investigate everything that had happened to Yun Shirshir when she was 18 years old. He could even investigate everything that had happened to her in the past 24 years. But he wanted to hear her tell him. However, there was a trace of melancholy in his heart. There was an inexplicable sense of melancholy. The more Yun Shirshir spoke, the more he realized that he had missed out on more than just those 15 years. So many things could happen in 15 years. She was bullied in the orphanage, adopted at the age of 9, admitted to a key junior high school at the age of 12, entered puberty at the age of 13, went to university at the age of 18, and even had a child. These were things that he could have witnessed. The more he listened, the more anxious he felt. Gong Jie couldn't help but lower his head, put a cigarette in his mouth, and lit it with familiarity. Following the flickering of the sparks, a wisp of smoke faintly drifted out. He was not a heavy smoker, but when he was upset, he would smoke a cigarette. Yun Shirshir was stunned by his actions. She looked at him as he sat opposite her, leaning elegantly against the back of the chair. There was a cigarette between his fingers, and his thin lips were lightly sucking on it. Following that, a thin wisp of smoke came out from his lips and nose and dissipated into the air. She was stunned for a moment and instinctively snatched the cigarette from his hand when he took the third puff. Then she fiercely put it out in the ashtray. Gong Jie's eyes flickered. "Sister, when did you learn to smoke?" Yun Shirshir said sullenly, "You're not allowed to smoke." Gong Jie was slightly taken aback and chuckled. She was still treating him like a child. Chapter 1420. In other words, he was no longer a child. Perhaps in her eyes, he was still the little devil who clung to her from 15 years ago. However, he was now an adult and had mastered the rules and games of adult society. "You can't smoke either." Yun Shirshir paused for a moment and snorted coldly. "You're not allowed to smoke anymore, okay?" Gong Jie was stunned. Yun Shirshir said angrily, "Be good and listen to me. I don't like Xiao Jie smoking." Gong Jie smiled and rested his chin on his hand. "Okay." His deep gaze landed on her face. His usual arrogance had faded away, and he looked docile and docile. "I'll listen to you." If she didn't allow him to smoke, then he wouldn't smoke. If she didn't like the way he smoked, then he would never smoke again. He was willing to be her favorite Gong Jie in front of her. "That's a good boy." Yun Shirshir was satisfied when she heard that. She reached out and pinched his cheeks. Gong Jie was even more infatuated with her smile. He liked the way she looked when she smiled. It was so gentle and charming. Her beautiful and refined face was like a fairy in a painting. Even if the world stopped at this moment, even if a century passed, he wouldn't get tired of her smile. It was raining heavily outside the window. Gong Jie sent her back to Xianxia. Before she left, he returned her purse that she had left in his car and kissed her cheek reluctantly. "Sis, can I still look for you often in the future?" he asked carefully, his gaze full of hope. Yun Shirshir replied matter-of-factly, "Of course. It's just that sometimes I don't have time when I'm working." By the way, Yun Shirshir held an umbrella and stood in the rain. Her voice was gentle as she asked, "Xiao Jie, what do you do now?" Gong Jie fell silent. Yun Shirshir tilted her head, puzzled by his silence. After a moment of dead silence, he smiled warmly and replied, "Sis, I'm now running my own company." He gave an ambiguous answer, but concealed part of the truth. As the chief commander of the Hurricane Group, he owned a large amount of shares in the Hurricane Group. However, he did not tell her the truth about the background of the Hurricane Group. He didn't dare to imagine what she would think of him if he told her that a casual order from him was worth billions of dollars. This order might lead to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of civilians. He was afraid of her, afraid of him, disgusted with him. She even avoided him. Therefore, he concealed the truth from her. Yun Shirshir was taken aback. Her eyes widened slightly as she exclaimed, "Amazing! Shao Jie, you're so young, but you're already so successful. Sister, it's raining heavily. You should go home." Gong Jie avoided the topic and urged her. Yun Shirshir nodded, waved at him, and entered the door. Gong Jie stared thoughtfully at her receding figure. All of a sudden, he rolled up the car window and turned his head to look at her. "Back to the office." "Yes, young Master Gong." Along the way, Gong Jie sat in the back seat with a slightly complicated expression. Why did she hide the identity of the child's biological father from him? In fact, he knew that Yu Yu was the blood of the Mu family. His biological father was Mu Yaja. When he first found out about the relationship between Yu Yu and Mu Yaja, he was a little surprised but didn't pay much attention to it. However, when he found out that Yu Yu was Yun Shirshir's son and his little nephew, what was the relationship between Mu Yaja and Yun Shirshir? Chapter 1421. If they were a couple, why was the child already 7 years old? Why didn't they hold a wedding ceremony? Moreover, Mu Yaja and her were both unmarried. He had checked this before. He had investigated Mu Yaja's background. He was not married and did not have a wife. He only had a son. He had always protected his son well, so he did not find a photo of him. However, the information showed that the child was also 7 years old. It was hard not to associate him with Yu Yu. He remembered that Lisa had brought back a child who looked exactly like Yu Yu. This child was probably the child by Mu Yaja's side. Lisa had said that the child and Yu Yu were identical twins. Since Mu Yaja and his sister had 2 children, and one of the children had been acknowledged by the Mu family, what was the relationship between them? Secret lover? Gong Jie was furious when he thought of this word. If she was really Mu Yaja's secret lover, he would not allow his sister to be with this man. Not to mention the feud between the Gong and Mu families, he would not allow his sister to be wronged because of this secret identity. However, judging from his sister's attitude, it did not seem as simple as a secret lover. At first, he suspected that Yu Yu might be Mu Yaja's biological son. However, when he saw Mu Yaja's photo, even if he wanted to doubt it, he did not have the right to do so. The father and son looked very similar. This level of similarity was even greater than the similarity between Yu Yu and Yun Shirshir. One look and one could tell that they were father and son. Then, what happened when Yun Shirshir was 18 years old? Were they together? 18 years old was still young and innocent. She should have been enjoying her carefree youth. Why did she have a child at such a young age? So early? Did something happen? Or was she forced or bullied? Gong Jie clenched his fists when he thought of this possibility. He wanted to punch Mu Yaja into pieces. Damn it, the more he thought about it, the more frustrated he became. In Gong Jie's heart, his hatred for the Mu family had long been integrated into his bones and blood. It was hard to get rid of it. Since he was young, he had been influenced by the Gong family and knew how much his father hated the Mu family. Similarly, he hated the Mu family to the core. Hence, when he was caught off guard by the relationship between Yun Shirshir and Mu Yaja, he felt lost and did not know how to face the man whom he should address as brother-in-law. This man's blood have that sinner's blood. Sinner's blood. Damn it. He could not accept this fact. Even though he maintained a facade of not knowing the truth in front of Yun Shirshir, he was still conflicted deep down. Gong Jie stroked his fringe anxiously, his deep-set eyes hidden in the shadows. Yun Shirshir's schedule was busy again. The casting of Lethal Beauty was almost done. However, for the sake of confidentiality, The 4 main leads and several important supporting actors and actresses were kept a secret. Even Xianxia did not know who would be playing the roles. She only knew that Lin Ji and Hua Jin would be playing the roles. As for the other supporting roles, the dust had not settled yet. They were still in the midst of casting. Chapter 1422. In this smokeless war, whoever had a strong background would be able to show their faces in this drama. It was a realistic and cruel problem. Xianxia suddenly realized how terrifying Qin Zhou's methods were. She had just debuted, but she was able to secure important roles in 2 gold medal production teams, The Green Apple and Lethal Beauty. She was well aware that, putting aside her ability, Qin Zhou's methods were also indispensable. If not for Qin Zhou and Lin Fengtian's support, she might not have been able to successfully act in The Green Apple. Similarly, in the production team of Lethal Beauty, Qin Zhou was even more impressive. He had almost taken the lead role for her. Unfortunately, she loved supporting roles more and wanted to challenge this vicious female supporting role. Qin Zhou was often disappointed. However, Xianxia understood that this was the decision she wanted and she would not regret it. Acting was not just a job, it was also her interest. She was excited to challenge every role that had tension. After the casting of Lethal Beauty, there would be an opening ceremony and she would have to prepare to enter the production team. However, before that, she had to prepare for The Love Diary. This was one of the more important parts of her script. The Love Diary was a reality show on Qingguang Satellite TV about imaginary love. In the show, popular stars formed imaginary lovers and went on an imaginary date show. After the first episode of the show was aired, the first group of imaginary couples quickly became a popular first-tier reality show. Gu Xingzi and Xianxia were the second set of imaginary lovers. The production team had great ambitions and expectations for this set of lovers, and saw them as the absolute guarantee of ratings. The script for the reality show had been sent to Xianxia's email 2 days ago. Qin Zhou told her to go back and study it seriously. He also sent people to train her to make a last-minute effort to cultivate her sense of variety. It was a reality show. It was not enough to just have good looks. They had to create topics, gimmicks, and laughs. Therefore, it was a test of an artiste's sense of artistry. The moment Xianxia received the script, she was in a bad mood. The thick stack of scripts made her scalp tingle. She flipped through a few pages. The production team had carefully divided the key points for her. They were very considerate. The Love Diary was divided into 4 units. The first unit was about the heartbeat of first love. In this unit, the 2 artists who were supposed to be a couple first met and started the process of getting to know each other. The script for this unit was especially thick. Of course, even though it was a reality show, the characters were set by the production team. In this reality show, Xianxia had to play the role of an innocent and kind schoolbelle. In short, there was only one word to describe her: silly, naive, and sweet. Silly and sweet, she was already the mother of 2 children, but the production team actually had such a bad taste to give her such a persona. Then, he took a look at Gu Xingzi's character profile, the healer and warm-hearted man-healer. Xianxia remained expressionless, thinking back to Gu Xingzi's usual cold expression. Just treat it as an idle drama. However, before the show started recording, something terrifying happened. Xianxia received a threatening letter. It was not that she had not received threatening letters before. In the past, when there were rumors about her and Gu Xingzi on Weibo, she had received many threatening letters from Gu Xingzi's fans. There were countless of them. Chapter 1423. Some were very uncreative, such as sending razor blades. Some purposely photoshopped her photo into a posthumous photo, clipped it with a chrysanthemum, and wantonly insulted her in the letter. Some even threatened to perish together with her if she did not leave Gu Xingzi. She glanced at them and threw them all into the trash can. Initially, when she received the threatening letters, she was still a little afraid and felt her hair stand on end. However, with the endless number of threatening letters, she gradually became numb. Even when she received another threatening letter, she would throw it away without looking at it. However, this threatening letter was a little different. The threatening letter was first handed to her. She could not hold back her curiosity and opened it to take a look. However, just as she opened the letter, she was surprised to smell a strong scent of blood. She glanced at the letter and saw that it was written with blood. It was a letter written in blood. It was really a letter written in blood. The words on the letter were written in dried blood. Every stroke was written with a force that penetrated the back of the paper. Xianxia, you be asterisk teeth. You're just a bitch in heat. Be asterisk teeth. If you continue to pester Xianxia, you'll be hit by a car, struck by lightning, or torn apart by 5 horses. Son of a b asterisk teeth. Your whole family will be cremated. Xianxia doesn't like you at all. He belongs to our galaxy and doesn't belong to you. Leave him immediately, or else you'll be disfigured by sulfuric acid. All kinds of insults were written on the letter. There were even threats to splash Xianxia with sulfuric acid to disfigure her. She was so frightened that her hand trembled and her face turned pale. The letter fluttered to the ground. Xianxia happened to pass by and saw the letter in her hand. She shuddered in fear and bent down to pick up the letter that had fallen to the ground. She could not stop her in time and had already scanned through the letter. The moment she saw the words "whole family will be cremated," her face turned ashen. Her eyes were filled with anger. She was furious. She crumpled the letter into a ball and threw it into the trash can. Her chest heaved violently, unable to calm down. This is too much. How can this be? It's fine if you threaten me, but you even cursed my family? Xianxia was so angry that her whole body trembled. Her eyes were red and filled with tears. While she felt wronged, she also felt unusually angry. She carefully observed her expression and said with heartache, "Xianxia, don't take it to heart. These people are brainless fans and don't think before they speak." "How can I not take it to heart?" Xianxia retorted angrily, "This person is too much. She even cursed my family to be cremated. She's too uncultured." She had purposely written her name as Corpse Cloud and insulted her as a bitch in heat. Anyone who saw others cursing them like that would be infuriated. She hadn't reached the stage where she could remain calm even after being insulted like this. What was even more unbearable was that this person actually cursed her entire family to be cremated. She was very, as she was, a person's people as her, as. She was already used to people cursing her, but she couldn't stand it when people cursed her family. Chapter 1424. This is too much. It's really too much. Xianxia was so angry that her face turned red. She clenched her fists so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She quickly helped Xianxia to the sofa and sat her down, comforting her. "Xianxia, don't be angry. We're about to start recording the show. If you're so angry that your face wrinkles, it won't be easy for you to put on makeup." She deliberately teased her, but Xianxia remained unmoved. She sat stiffly on the sofa with her hands on her knees clenched tightly. Her face seemed to have been painted white and was abnormally pale. Seeing this, she sighed with heartache. She poured a cup of warm water and handed it to her. She slowly said, "Xianxia, actually, as a public figure and an artist, such things will happen more often in the future. You should train yourself to have a stronger mentality. As a public figure, you'll be facing malicious speculation, slander, gossip, and even threats from all directions every day and every moment. There are so many people in this world, and not everyone is kind. Besides, humans are selfish, aren't they? Xianxia has a lot of fans. Just the registered fans on the official website alone have reached 100 million, breaking the Guinness Book of Records. Those that haven't been recorded have yet to be counted. With such a large base and such a large fan base, there will definitely be a few people with malicious intentions. She spoke step by step. Xianxia listened quietly, and her body gradually became less stiff. She continued. "Xianxia, the reason why you're facing so many malicious speculations and slander is because you're outstanding. Sometimes, an outstanding person will emit a dazzling light that stings the eyes of others. So, you don't have to take this matter to heart. I'll get someone to investigate who sent this letter." "No need." Xianxia suddenly forced a smile. "There's no need. Just as Mushi said, There was really no need to pay attention to such malicious people. Could it be that after a person was bitten by a mad dog, he would still stupidly bite back? She regained her spirit and said lightly, "Ask Ding Ning to do my makeup." She smiled. After comforting Xianxia for a while, she hurriedly went out to find Ding Ning to do her makeup. In preparation for the filming of The Love Diary, the production team specially emphasized that they had to give Xianxia a pure and beautiful look and create the image of the nation's campus belle. Coincidentally, with the release of The Green Apple, the production team could also bask in the popularity of the movie. After Xianxia was done with her makeup, she changed into a pure dress and got ready to record the show. She bumped into Xianxia in the corridor. In this episode, Xianxia wore a snow-white shirt and looked like the nation's most handsome boy. Xianxia couldn't help but smile when she thought of the character in the script, a warm and caring guy. His attire fit his character very well. Xianxia was slightly stunned when he saw her, but he quickly regained his composure. "Have you memorized the script?" he asked in a low voice, his gaze gentle. Xianxia nodded and then said with a depressed look, "I thought that reality shows are all about me acting as myself. I didn't expect that I have to follow the script. Every line is pre-written." "If possible, you can also improvise," Xianxia said. Chapter 1425. I rarely take part in reality shows. Even if I do, I don't want to memorize the script. Xianxia paused and added, "It's very boring." "Then, you don't want to follow the script?" Xianxia laughed and said, "I just need to take a look at it. Just one look and I can roughly guess the direction of the script. As for the rest, I just have to improvise on the spot." Xianxia was taken aback. She sighed inwardly. He was indeed a natural-born best actor. Just one look at the script and he could improvise on the spot according to his character. "Get ready for the filming," Xianxia said. He then went into the dressing room to do his hair. Xianxia walked to the filming location. At this moment, the set was being set up. The first segment, First Love's Heartbeat. The filming location was a tastefully decorated cafe. In this segment, according to the script, she and Xianxia would meet for the first time. They would get to know each other and interact with each other. For example, they would cook desserts, cakes, and coffee together to create a loving afternoon tea. This was a very romantic segment. Xianxia felt a little indignant when she saw this scene. When would Wuxia be able to create romantic surprises for her? Apart from that one time at Huxin Island, when he created a romantic date for her, there seemed to be nothing else. He was really a man who did not understand romance. Xianxia sighed inwardly. In fact, she really hoped that she could take part in this segment with Wuxia, and not with Xianxia. She did not have any feelings for Xianxia at all. It was really difficult for her to take part in such a reality show with him and act as if they were in love. Did Wuxia know that she was taking part in this reality show with Xianxia? If the program was broadcasted and he saw it, this man would definitely be extremely jealous. Xianxia snorted coldly in her heart. She really wanted the program to be broadcast as soon as possible so that he could see what a textbook example of a warm and caring man was like. Be jealous, be jealous. She could not wait for him to be jealous. What an emotionless ice block. Unknowingly, half an hour had passed. After the set was completed, the director announced the official start of the filming. The Love Diary, Scene 1, First Love, Heartbeat, Action. According to the script, the two of them would meet at a cafe for the first time. According to the script of the show, both of them had prepared small gifts for each other. Xianxia had prepared a limited edition crystal necklace for her and he personally put it around her neck. Xianxia, on the other hand, followed the script and prepared a box of failed cakes. The reason why it was called a failure was because the cake was not made well and was a little burnt. This small prop was prepared by the production team. According to the script, Xianxia wanted to prepare a handmade cake for him for their first meeting. Unfortunately, it was her first time making it, so she had no experience. Not only did she burn her hand, but the cake also failed to cook. She shyly took the cake and said to Xianxia with a look of regret, "Because it's my first time making a cake, so it seems like it failed." The camera fell on her hand. She even had a band-aid on her finger. Gu Xingze opened the gift box. What appeared on camera was a cake that could not have been any worse. Chapter 1426. The cameraman zoomed in on Yun Shishir's guilty and shy face again and gave a close-up. Gu Xingze, on the other hand, reached out and gently dipped his fair, jade-like fingertips into the cake. He put it in his mouth and tasted it. His lips curled into a gentle smile as his starry eyes fell on her bashful face. "Thank you. The cake is delicious. I like it very much." As soon as he said that, Yun Shishir was surprised and in disbelief. "It's obvious that I failed," she mumbled in a daze. Gu Xingze, however, did not take it to heart. He picked up a small piece of cake and took a bite. His face was full of contentment and tenderness. "It's very sweet." Yun Shishir immediately said embarrassedly, "Are you comforting me?" "It must be very bad. Some parts of it are burnt. If you think it's bad, don't force yourself. I'll feel guilty." Gu Xingze looked up and looked at her affectionately. "As long as it's made by you, I like it very much." Yun Shishir was stunned. Gu Xingze said seriously, "I'll finish it all." The recording process progressed step by step. After a short conversation, the two of them went backstage and started to make the desserts and coffee. The process was, of course, to create an ambiguous and romantic scene. In one scene, Yun Shishir was standing at the kitchen counter and stirring the egg yolks seriously. Gu Xingze suddenly hugged her from behind and held her hand as they stirred. This scene was very romantic. If post-production was added, it would be as beautiful as an exquisite music video. Gu Xingze half-hugged Yun Shishir and held her hand seriously as they stirred the egg yolks together. Yun Shishir, on the other hand, lowered her face shyly. Her cheeks were pink and she was blushing. She was obviously shy. After making the desserts, it was time to enjoy them. The desserts made by Yun Shishir and Gu Xingze were naturally inedible. For the sake of the show's effect, the desserts were made to taste terrible. The production crew served the desserts that they had prepared beforehand and presented them to the two of them before they continued filming. In this scene, the two of them were feeding each other. Gu Xingze scooped up a spoonful of dessert and brought it to Yun Shishir's mouth. Yun Shishir cursed silently as she acted. She didn't know how many threatening letters she would receive after the post-production of the reality show was completed. Gu Xingze's fans must send her razor blades. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but feel her hair stand on end. During the recording process, Gu Xingze was in his best state. Every look and expression in his eyes were perfect, portraying the image of a warm and caring man. On the other hand, Yun Shishir played the role of a pure and innocent school belle very well. The two of them were like lovers who had fallen in love at first sight and had just confirmed their relationship. Every moment that they spent together, it was as if pink bubbles were emitting from them. It was very much like first love. However, Gu Xingze's acting was so realistic and on point that even Yun Shishir, who was sitting in front of him, couldn't tell if it was real or not. Was he acting or was he revealing his true feelings? Especially when he looked at her affectionately, the hidden tenderness in the depths of his deep eyes seemed to be on the verge of bursting out. Chapter 1427. Yun Shishir could not help but be startled. For a moment, her heart was beating like thunder because of his affectionate gaze. Gu Xingze suddenly looked up and asked with a gentle smile, "Do you like music?" Yun Shishir nodded, "I like it very much." "Then let me sing a song for you, okay?" Gu Xingze asked. Yun Shishir's face was filled with surprise. Can I?" "I specially prepared a song for you. It's a song by Lin Tianwang. I want to sing it for you." Yun Shishir clapped her hands and said with a pink face, "All right." The setting was a coffee shop. In the coffee shop, there was a very romantic music stage. On the stage was a tripod piano. Gu Xingze slowly sat down in front of the piano. For some reason, when he sat in front of the tripod piano, his gentle and elegant side profile instantly sparkled like stars, and his elegant temperament was about to come out. No wonder it was said that Gu Xingze was born to be the movie king, and he was also the prince of love songs who was endowed with a soul by the heavens. He lowered his head slightly, and his gentle and delicate side profile fell into her eyes, causing ripples of tenderness to appear. He raised his hand, and his fair hands landed on the black and white piano keys. They were slender and beautiful. Every finger of his beautiful hands seemed to be carved out of jade. He was born to be an outstanding pianist. He turned his face slightly and looked deeply at Xianxia. With just this glance, Xianxia was completely stunned. Her heart felt as if it had been stabbed by something, because she could clearly see the tenderness in his eyes. This tenderness was not an act. It was so real. Her heart suddenly began to ache. Xianxia slowly played. Along with the tinkling sound of the piano, a gentle and extremely magnetic voice flowed out like flowing water. Love yourself well, and someone will love you. This is an optimistic statement. The look of happiness makes me feel so really can't find an adjective. The silence is hiding the overflowing passion. Only the particle is left. There is a kind of steadiness when you call my name. He played and sang affectionately. Every word seemed to be engraved into his soul. When people heard it, their scalps immediately went numb and goosebumps appeared all over their bodies. His voice was so gentle and pleasant. When he sang to the emotional part, he gently lowered his eyes, frowned slightly, and his thin lips slowly opened and closed. Coupled with the sad and affectionate sound of the piano, it actually made people have the urge to cry. The position of the fallen leaves compose a poem. Time is passing. Our story, this is the first time. Let me see that love can be generous and selfish. You are my keyword. Not sure love is the best way. Is a verb or noun. I want to tell you the most asterisk, but I forget the words. Gathering and parting always, sometimes for crying and laughing sometimes. I am not afraid of the subtext. Xianxia's mellow voice, tinged with a hint of laziness, was transmitted through the condenser microphone. There was no need for post-processing. It was already very textured. Someone once commented that Xianxia's voice had a magical power. Just hearing it once was enough to mesmerize and make one's heart go numb. This song was an extremely sad love song. It was the song that Lin Tianwang performed at the Golden Melody Awards. It was sung by Xianxia, but it had a unique style. The audience quieted down. Even the director team was deeply immersed in this song. It was so good. This was also why Xianxia was the well-deserved king of singers at the Golden Melody Awards, and no one dared to object. His voice was too perfect. Chapter 1428. This song was not part of the script at all. It was Xianxia's arrangement. Even the director did not expect him to prepare a song for Xianxia. However, the recording would definitely turn out well. Xianxia listened quietly and could not help but fall into a trance. Looking at the superstar's gentle side profile, a thought flashed through her mind. Fragmented scenes flashed past her eyes like a merry-go-round. She suddenly recalled Xianxia standing in front of her and holding her shoulders uncontrollably. He carefully probed, "Can't I? Must it be him? Can't I? What Wuxia can do, I can do too. I can also give you everything he can give you. What he can't give you, what he can't promise you, I can also give you. So, can't I?" In his eyes, she was so fragile as if she was a bubble that would burst at the slightest touch. "Xianxia, I really like you. You don't have to deliberately avoid me. If you like me, you like me. If you don't like me, you don't like me. I just don't like to suppress myself. I like you. If you change your mind, I'll wait for you at the same place. However, I won't force you to like me, nor will I do those things that make things difficult for you. So, you don't have to hide from me like this, understand? At least, please retain my right to like you. Please let me protect you silently." Xianxia snapped back to reality from her memories. Unknowingly, she was deeply moved by Xianxia's singing. She could actually feel the love that he had buried deep in his heart from his singing. Her heart suddenly ached and she felt suffocated. She could feel Xianxia's determination to protect her silently. She recalled that he seemed to be intentionally or unintentionally cold and indifferent to her. Even when he smiled, it was the kind of gentleness a senior would show to a junior. However, when he sang, the sadness in his voice could not be hidden at all. She knew very well that he had not really let go of her. He was just hiding this deep in his heart. He did not say anything because he did not want his feelings to burden her. Mu Shi, who was standing at the side, was also shocked. His singing was so affectionate. All his emotions were gathered in the lyrics, especially his eyes, which were filled with endless affection. Wuxia guessed that there must be someone he loved very much in his heart. What do you mean by hiding in the lyrics? Is a proper noun. Compose a poem by the position of the fallen leaves. Our story is just beginning. This is the first time. To love someone so generously and selfishly, you are my key word. When the song ended, Xianxia stood up and turned to look at Xianxia. Her eyes were wide open and filled with tears. In the blink of an eye, tears rolled down her cheeks. She came back to her senses from the song and realized that she was actually crying emotionally as she listened to it. Xianxia walked in front of her, picked up a handkerchief, and gently wiped away her tears. Xianxia smiled and looked up at him. She clapped for him. Thank you. You sang so well. I cried listening to it. Xianxia smiled helplessly and reached out to stroke her head. Little fool. His eyes were filled with doting love. Wuxia, who was at the side, almost screamed out loud when she saw this. Xianxia's boyfriend power is off the charts. He's too gentle. Chapter 1429. The production team was also silent for a moment. They were all stunned by Xianxia's sudden song. They did not expect that Xianxia would play and sing a song for Xianxia. However, if the show's effects were to be produced, it would definitely be good. It was a very amusing scene, and the viewership ratings would definitely be first. Throughout the entire recording process, Wuxia was watching it live. When she witnessed Xianxia and Xianxia's first date, she felt as if she had been fed a mouthful of dog food. She felt stifled. She felt as if she had been showered with affection. This reality show was simply torturing single people. This was especially true for a single person like her. Watching the whole process, she was hurt 10,000 points. The scene of Xianxia wiping Xianxia's tears, in particular, was a blow to her heart. Her heart felt as if it had been stabbed hard. She felt pain and jealousy. To be in a relationship with the nation's Prince Charming was the dream of many young girls. Oh God! Xianxia is so handsome. Xianxia is so gentle. His side profile when he plays the piano is so handsome. Just one look from him is enough to kill me. Wuxia held her face and wanted to scream uncontrollably. She was so envious of Xianxia. Even if this was just a reality show, to put it bluntly, it was just a show. However, even if she knew that this was fake, Wuxia was still infatuated with Xianxia's tenderness. Especially when he looked at Xianxia, his gaze was so gentle that it could drown her. Wuxia's heart melted as she watched. She bit the corner of her shirt aggrievedly and suddenly envied Xianxia. The recording of the first episode of The Love Diary ended smoothly. After it ended, there were 2 more segments left, and that was Love Whispers. The 2 artistes entered a small dark room respectively to watch the edited scenes of the show. While they were being interviewed, they would also express their experiences and feelings about their first date. Xianxia watched the edited scenes and expressed her feelings. Senior Xianxia is really a very gentle person. He has also taken great care of me. I remember the first time I met Senior Xianxia, it was on set. He took care of me no matter how big or small the matter was. He was also very gentlemanly. In my heart, he's a heavenly king, the nation's Prince Charming. Sometimes, working with him can be quite stressful. However, he always told me not to feel pressured. It's a pleasure working with him. Actually, this is my first time filming this show, so I'm quite nervous. But on the first date it was more of a surprise. Especially when he played and sang that song, I was very surprised and pleasantly surprised. I really didn't expect that he would specially prepare this song for me. I'm surprised and touched at the same time. At the end of the recording, she made a heart sign to the camera. Brother Xianxia, I love you. These lines were all memorized according to the script. The production team had divided the key points, and she memorized this part very carefully. Thus, the recording ended smoothly. Just as she walked out of the recording studio, Wuxia pounced on her tearfully and bitterly said, "Xianxia, I'm really envious of you." Xianxia broke out in cold sweat. What's wrong? Chapter 1430. Xianxia glanced at her coldly. I'm going home. Mushi then said, wait, you have a mission tonight. What? It turned out that her manager had arranged a last-minute schedule for her. She was to enter the recording studio tonight to complete a difficult task. The post-production of The Green Apple had entered its final stage, and that was the post-production dubbing. Generally speaking, for a teen movie like The Green Apple, the dubbing was usually done by professional dubbing actors due to the artist's accents and lines, as well as the character's plot settings and other considerations. Many artists' lines were not up to standard, and some had different accents, such as Beijing or Jiangnan, which made their lines appear abrupt. Lin Fengtian, however, felt that Yun Shishir and Gu Xingze had a good foundation in their lines. Yun Shishir's voice, in particular, was fluent in Mandarin and had a good foundation in her lines. She had no problems with her lines, too. Her voice was gentle, pleasant, and as clear as spring water. More importantly, her voice was very close to the original character's setting. Hence, Lin Fengtian solemnly decided to give up on dubbing actors and let Yun Shishir complete the post-production dubbing with her original voice. The Green Apple was 2 hours long, and Yin Xiaochuan had more than 300 lines. It was quite a huge project. Lin Fengtian specially found a dubbing teacher and threw Yun Shishir into the recording studio. She would spend the next 3 days on this. According to his estimation, it would take about 3 days to complete all the dubbing. Yun Shishir specially applied for leave from home, stated the reason, and guiltily apologized to Yu Yu and Xiao Yichen. When Yu Yu learned that Yun Shishir had to work and could not return home for 3 days, he felt depressed and heartbroken at the same time. These few days, ever since his mother resumed work, her schedule had been packed. The movie was about to enter its promotional period, so she would probably have to fly all over the country. Apparently, his mother had recently accepted a film contract and would be joining the production team soon. Mu Yazhe was busy wrapping up the acquisition of the Meng Group, so he always came home late. Hence, Yu Yu and Xiao Yichen could only pitifully rely on each other. In the end, the work that was supposed to be completed in 3 days was delayed to a week. It was not because of anything else but because Yun Shishir was not a dubbing actress. When she acted, she had a good foundation in her lines because of her emotions. However, after filming ended for so long, she did not adjust her emotional state during the acting process. In addition, Lin Fengtian's harsh work attitude and his nitpicking. Poor Yun Shishir, who had just been ravaged by Lin Fengtian, had yet to regain her composure when she was dragged by her manager to board a private plane to Italy for the Milan Fashion Week. On the plane, Yun Shishir still had not figured out the itinerary of their flight to Italy. I'm taking you to watch a show. Qin Zhou explained. Watch a show. Yun Shishir widened her eyes in shock. Boss Qin, I haven't slept for 3 days. As she spoke, she pitifully pointed at the dark circles under her eyes and said in an aggrieved tone, Did you see my dark circles? Do you see them? I haven't slept for a day and a night. If this goes on, I suspect that I will die in the line of duty. Chapter 1431. Huh. Yun Shishir was so tired that she slumped on the chair. She felt that her whole life was gloomy. I'm so tired. I want to hug my pillow and sleep until the sky turns dark. Dreams are always beautiful, Qin Zhou quietly said from the side. Yun Shishir was disheartened. She said miserably, I want to sleep. There are still 5 hours before landing in Italy. You can use this time to catch up on sleep. Yun Shishir complained, Boss Qin, you're squeezing your employees dry. I protest. Protest overruled. I appeal. Overruled. I'm going to die. Yun Shishir had no choice but to compromise. She pitifully covered her face with her clothes and put the chair down. After a while, she quickly fell asleep. She was really tired. As soon as the plane landed, Yun Shishir, who had yet to adjust to the jet lag, was hurriedly dragged to the studio by her manager. The moment she stepped in, she was surrounded by 3 top-notch stylists who were eyeing her covetously. Yun Shishir was speechless. Could she say that the way these men looked at her was scary? Yun Shishir raised her hands and surrendered. Then she allowed the 3 stylists to surround her. One moment, they were messing with her hairstyle, the next moment, they were messing with her makeup, and the next moment, They were messing with her clothes. Qin Zhou stood at the side and gave advice from time to time. There were a few times when Yun Shishir's hairstyle was not up to standard. With one sentence from Qin Zhou, they were all dismantled and redone. Yun Shishir was so sleepy that she kept yawning. When she was putting on makeup, she dozed off a few times. When her head fell down, her eyeliner messed up her entire face. Qin Zhou could not stand it anymore. He waved his hand and said, "That's all for now. Go back and rest first." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Yun Shishir raised her hands and cheered. When she stood up, her stomach suddenly growled. She had not eaten anything for a day and was obviously hungry. Yun Shishir held her stomach pitifully and looked at Qin Zhou. She bit her lip and complained, "I'm hungry." "Bear with it." Qin Zhou snorted and said heartlessly, "It's already night time. You can't eat." "I'm really hungry." She was trying her best to catch up on sleep on the plane, but she didn't have a good rest. Qin Zhou lectured her, "There's a show tomorrow afternoon. If you put on more weight, it won't do." Yun Shishir, there will be a lot of big names from Hollywood attending the Milan fashion show tomorrow. Do you want to make a fool of yourself on the red carpet? I don't care, you have to be beautiful when you appear on the runway tomorrow. Your face must be as sharp as you want it to be, and your waist must be as thin as you want it to be. Do you understand? Yun Shishir almost rolled her eyes. "Go back and rest. Wash up and wait for me at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning." Yun Shishir seemed to have lost all her strength. It was already 10 o'clock at night. Oh God, as soon as she entered the hotel, she threw herself on the bed and made use of the time to catch up on sleep. When Qin Zhou appeared at the door of Yun Shishir's room at 5 o'clock in the morning the next day, he opened the door and saw Yun Shishir's resentful face. He looked at her eyes. They were bloodshot and there were faint dark circles under her eyes. She sounded as if she was about to cry. "I didn't sleep well last night." Qin Zhou raised his eyebrows. Yun Shishir said, "I can't get used to the bed." Qin Zhou held his forehead helplessly. "I give up. Your schedule will only get more and more packed in the future. You have to get used to it as soon as possible." Yun Shishir's voice became weaker. "I know." Chapter 1432. The hairstyling process was long and boring. Hence, Yun Shishir played with her phone while she permed her hair. However, when she opened Weibo, she suddenly realized that there were tens of thousands of new fans and countless comments. She was stunned. What was going on? Qin Zhou saw the suspicion on her face and kindly reminded her, the show was broadcast yesterday. It turned out that the first episode of The Love Diary was broadcast on Qingguang TV on the day she boarded the plane. The publicity for the show was overwhelming and it caused a sensation. Many die-hard fans of Gu Xingzi were attracted to the show. On Weibo, the number of topics and discussions about the lucky couple rose to the top. Many fans of the original novel of The Green Apple even came to support them. Under the anticipation of the audience, the show was broadcast and it won the #1 spot among the primetime variety shows. There was no doubt about Gu Xingzi's influence and appeal. No matter how one looked at it, there was no doubt about Gu Xingzi's popularity. Once the show was broadcast, there was a heated discussion about the show online. For a reality show like The Love Diary, post-production was very important. Coupled with the character designs in the script, Yun Shishir and Gu Xingzi's characters were very likable. One was a pure campus belle while the other was a warm and caring guy. Coupled with the gimmick of first date, many people fell in love with Gu Xingzi's performance. It was Gu Xingzi's first time participating in such a romantic reality show. As a fan of Gu Xingzi, it was a huge attraction. Through the show, many viewers saw how romantic and affectionate their idol was when he was a boyfriend. They were even more fanatical. Unsurprisingly, half of the comments on Yun Shishir's Weibo were from Gu Xingzi's die-hard fans. All kinds of unpleasant words were endless. There were even many marketing accounts that publicly humiliated Yun Shishir and accused her of using Gu Xingzi's popularity to hurt Gu Xingzi's fans. Yun Shishir did not read much of it. Qin Zhou specifically reminded her not to read the comments online for the time being to avoid getting hurt. She listened obediently and did not look at Weibo. However, Qin Zhou had his own reasons for giving such an order. It was not because of anything else, but because the fans who insulted Xianxia were all paid by Qinzhou. This was also one of his methods. After the show was broadcasted, he immediately hired tens of thousands of ghostwriters to surround Xianxia's Weibo and attack her without thinking. They also clamored for #Xianxia to get out of the entertainment industry hashtag. This was taking advantage of the public's sympathy for the weak mentality. If he did not do that, firstly, Xianxia's Weibo would definitely be attacked by Gu Xingzi's fans after the show was aired. Secondly, it would be difficult for his team to control the situation. Therefore, he took the lead and sent out the internet water army to attack Xianxia with all kinds of vicious words. All kinds of attacks were unsightly and extremely vicious. As a result, many passers-by could not bear to continue watching. Thus, some kind-hearted netizens began to emerge. Are some of Gu Xingzi's die-hard fans crazy? What right do they have to clamor for Xianxia to get out of the entertainment industry? What right do you have? Xianxia is so pitiful. Just because the program team arranged for her to participate in the reality show with Gu Xingzi, she was attacked like this. How pitiful! Chapter 1433. She's just an imaginary couple with Gu Xingzi. Does she have to suffer so many rumors for no reason? Sure, you can do it. Don't bother about those unreasonable fans. I'm your fan and I really like The Green Apple. When the movie is released, I'll definitely support it. In an instant, the #Xianxia, you can do it hashtag became the top trending topic on Weibo. Many Xianxia's fans also started to fight back. Xianxia's fans deliberately took screenshots of Xianxia's beautiful moments from the show. Her good looks attracted many passers-by. Oh my God! Who is this woman? She's so beautiful. She reminds me of my first love. She has the temperament of a campus belle. I think she and Gu Xingzi are quite compatible. I don't remember her name, but I know her. She's the newbie who acted in The Green Apple with Gu Xingzi. She's so beautiful. Her nose is so beautiful and her eyes are so beautiful. It's as if there are many stars hidden in them. She's so beautiful. She's like an otherworldly fairy. Could it be that she's had plastic surgery? Many popular actresses nowadays are not original. Could it be that she's also had plastic surgery? The funny thing was, when some people questioned Xianxia's plastic surgery, many netizens who used to be plastic surgeons came forward to analyze it. I've carefully studied Xianxia's facial features. They're perfect. She has the perfect proportions of an Asian beauty. Her temperament is also very ethereal. The corners of her eyes are natural and the curve of her nose is also very natural. She doesn't look like she's had plastic surgery. I'm a plastic surgeon. I've studied her facial features. They're all natural. She hasn't gone under the knife. Facial features that have gone under the knife are very obvious. Many netizens started to look forward to the second episode of the show. I'm really looking forward to the second episode. But The Love Diary only has 2 episodes a month. We have to wait for another half a month for the second episode. I'm so envious of Xianxia. Although I know that The Love Diary is just a reality show, I still think that she and Xingzi are really compatible when they stand together. Mu Group. After Mu Yaja finished dealing with his work, he suddenly received an email. Inside the email was a link to a video website. The sender was Minyu. Boss, Madam is recording a new episode. Mu Yaja clicked on it. It was a program titled The Love Diary. Love Diary? Looking at the introduction of the show, it seemed to be a reality show about imaginary love. He frowned slightly. Ji Lin would report Xianxia's schedule to him every week. Among them, he mentioned that Xianxia had recently accepted a reality show. He only knew that it was a reality show, but he didn't know that it was a hypothetical love show. Mu Yaja scanned through the list and saw Gu Xingzi's name on it. His good-looking eyebrows furrowed even deeper at this sight. Gu Xingzi? Why was it him? Out of curiosity, he picked up the mouse and clicked play. The video was 50 minutes long, but he was actually very patient. He finished watching it without fast-forwarding for even a minute. However, the more he watched, the gloomier his expression became. He felt inexplicably unhappy, especially when he saw Xianxia crying after Gu Xingzi played a song in the cafe. His frown deepened. Why was she crying? Why was she crying? Was this a script? Chapter 1434. Mu Yaja furrowed his brows deeply, and his eyes were filled with anger. The reality show's post-production team had been specially hired to handle the entire production, so the show's effect was romantic and interesting. The scene of the two people's first date was especially romantic. Gu Xingzi prepared a beautiful necklace for Xianxia and even put it on her personally. The scene where he put it on her was filmed in slow motion, and it matched with the love song Gu Xingzi had specially written for the movie, The Green Apple. The entire scene seemed to be filled with pink bubbles, and it made people's hearts beat faster. Xianxia prepared a cake for Gu Xingzi that had failed to bake, and there was a scene where she personally fed Gu Xingzi. Mu Yaja watched the show expressionlessly from start to finish, and his face darkened. It was just a reality show. Reality shows were like movies, they had a script. Even though Mu Yaja knew that the so-called reality show was just a fake show, he was still upset and was about to turn it off. At the end of the show, Gu Xingzi suddenly confessed his true feelings. On the screen was a quiet recording studio. He sat on the sofa, facing the camera, and talked about his feelings for the date. Where did you first meet her? Gu Xingzi pondered for a moment, and his eyes suddenly curved. The first time I met her was at Huan Yu's annual cocktail party. She was wearing a gorgeous gown, and her makeup wasn't very thick, but she was very beautiful. Her beauty was probably something that could not be described with superficial words. She had a very special aura that attracted me immediately. He spoke very slowly, and his eyes were looking at the camera with a slight smile. When he mentioned Xianxia, the affection in his eyes could be clearly felt even through the screen. This man loved her deeply from the bottom of his heart. At the cocktail party, I invited her to dance with me. She had never learned ballroom dancing before, and she felt very clumsy. There were a few times when she stepped on my leather shoes. She was clumsy, but it felt... His voice suddenly stopped, and his eyes were filled with emotions, as if he was immersed in the memory of that day at the cocktail party. She felt very cute. The scene suddenly changed, and there was a scene from the date. It replayed the scene when Xianxia took out the cake that she had baked for him. She looked defeated and cautious, and together with Gu Xingzi's voiceover, it was touching. I like clumsy girls, and maybe I'm a male chauvinist in some ways. I like to pamper my girlfriend, and let her make trouble in my arms. I like that feeling, it makes me feel very safe. Is she clumsy? Actually, she's not stupid, but she's very kind, gentle, and treats people with sincerity. I like these qualities of hers. They're very attractive to me. In the next scene, the production team took out another question board. Do you believe in love at first sight? Gu Xingzi was taken aback when he was asked this question. His gaze and thoughts drifted away. Is this question difficult to answer? Gu Xingzi stopped thinking and suddenly shook his head. Then your answer is? Love at first sight? He narrowed his eyes and suddenly looked at the camera with a serious expression. Before I met her, I probably didn't. Chapter 1435. On his handsome face, the sullen expression was already overflowing with words. On the screen, a line of pink words appeared. Is Tia your ideal type? When Gu Xingzi received the question board, he was a little stunned. He suddenly asked, Ideal type? Generally speaking, you should have fantasies about your ideal lover. Gu Xingzi pursed his lips and answered directly, I don't have an ideal type. The production crew was a little surprised and laughed. How can you not have an ideal type? Generally, men would have certain fantasies about their future lovers when they met and fell in love with each other. For example, long hair, figure, appearance, temperament? Gu Xingzi also laughed. His thin lips curled up slightly, revealing a slight smile. After a moment of silence, his expression suddenly sank slightly. He said slowly, because of some reasons, I thought that I would probably never fall in love with anyone in my life. Gu Xingzi revealed his true feelings for the first time and brought up his background. When I was young, my parents broke up. I was exiled abroad and grew up alone, so I didn't experience the feeling of family. I don't know what love is like. I only know that my mother's relationship was a failure. She was abandoned and then... He did not continue, but there was a faint melancholy in his eyes. This was the first time Gu Xingze had shown this side of him in front of the camera. In the past, he had always been aloof and extraordinary, giving people the impression that he was a very sunny idol. However, in front of the camera, for the first time in his life, he looked a little depressed in front of the camera. Actually, I don't believe in love at all. I feel that love is a kind of illusory thing that can't be touched or seen. At the same time, it only imperceptibly gives people a heavy burden and makes it difficult for them to move forward. After being in the entertainment industry for so many years, there hasn't been a woman who has made me feel like starting a family. The production crew said with heartache, "This is the first time Xingze has mentioned this in front of the camera. Because I didn't have a family when I was young, my concept of family is very weak." Gu Xingze smiled. "She gives me a feeling." "How do you feel?" He described it seriously. "It's like a fated encounter, a fated lover." Fated lovers? A line of words appeared on the screen. He continued, "If we have to talk about the ideal type, then it would be Xianxia, right?" "Is Xianxia your ideal type?" Gu Xingze smiled deeply. "I like her no matter who she is." "You like her beauty?" Gu Xingze shook his head. "To be honest, I've seen many women more beautiful than her." The production team asked, "Then what do you like about her?" Gu Xingze thought hard for a while, then suddenly said, "It's an indescribable feeling." The production team, indescribable? That's right. Nothing can be explained clearly. The production team was a little surprised. "What do you mean?" Gu Xingze said affectionately, "Once you like someone, no matter what she looks like, no matter if she dresses up nicely or doesn't care about trifles, no matter if she's tall or short, fat or thin, rich or poor, you will like her. No one can replace her." "Do you like the gift from Teeth? That cake?" Gu Xingze raised his eyebrows and suddenly smiled. There was a slight disdain in his eyes. Chapter 1436. "But you looked so happy when you were eating the cake. You looked like you liked it a lot." Gu Xingze said seriously, "Yes, I liked it a lot." The production crew. "Because she was the one who made it." Gu Xingze explained, "Even if I got food poisoning from eating it, I would still eat it. It was her kind intentions." "You liked it a lot." As he said that, his face turned slightly red. In the slow-motion camera, Gu Xingze's smile was gentle and affectionate. "What do you want to say to your idol?" Gu Xingze suddenly pursed his lips shyly and avoided the camera. The shyness on his face was rare and had never been seen in front of the camera. In the past, Gu Xingze was always cold and indifferent in front of the camera. Even in front of his fans, he had never shown such an adorable smile. Like a shy boy, he smiled with his eyes squinted and was extremely gentle. "Don't be shy." Gu Xingze said, "Since it's from the bottom of my heart, I should say it to her secretly. I can't say it to you guys." The crew started to coax him, "You can say it here. She can see it too." "Really?" "Yes." Gu Xingze turned and looked at the camera as if he was looking at her. Suddenly, he said solemnly, "Please be my girlfriend." Then there was a long silence. The crew was stunned. "That's it?" Gu Xingze's face turned even redder. The crew tried to persuade him again. "Do you have anything you want to confess to her?" Gu Xingze mustered up his courage again and looked at the camera. His eyes were deep, but his smile faded and he looked a little solemn. Sure, I like you. I really like you. I don't know if you will like me like this, but I will try my best to give you happiness. Please date me. If possible, we can start a family together and then bear a child for me. I will be a responsible husband and father." Gu Xingze paused for a moment and said seriously, "I really, really like you." After saying that, he smiled gently in slow motion. The scene was so beautiful that one could not help but be moved to tears. Pa. Muyaja slammed his notebook shut, his face extremely gloomy. He made a call and instructed Minyu to report Yun Xiaoxia's recent schedule to him. Not long after, Minyu sent Yun Xiaoxia's schedule for this month to her. 1 month, 30 days. Every day's schedule was packed to the brim. At first glance, there was almost no time to breathe. According to her itinerary, she was currently in Italy, rushing to Milan Fashion Week. Milan Fashion Week was one of the 4 most famous fashion weeks in the world: Milan, Paris, New York, and London. Among the 4 major fashion weeks, Milan Fashion Week was the latest to rise. But now it was already at the top. It gathered the top figures in the fashion industry, thousands of professional buyers, and professional media and style trends from all over the world. The global spread of these elements was far beyond other business models. As one of the top 4 fashion weeks in the world, Milan Fashion Week in Italy was considered the barometer of fashion design and consumption in the world. Chapter 1437. As everyone knew, many female celebrities were working hard to become an international superstar. Compared to the red carpet at the Oslo, Berlin, Venice, and Cannes Film Festival, the fashion show was more approachable and had a lower threshold. The International Fashion Week, which happened twice a year, was not only a major event in the global luxury industry, but also an important opportunity for many female celebrities to grab the headlines. Every mid-autumn festival season, many female celebrities would rush to the fashion shows without prior agreement. Watching a fashion show was a very high-class thing. Although the threshold was low, it wasn't easy to get an invitation letter. It should be noted that when a luxury brand held a fashion show during Fashion Week, the range of invitations they could send out was strictly limited. In fact, 40% of the invitations were for the world's top fashion media. 30% was for famous fashion buyers. 10% was for celebrities and guests. 10% was for top VIP customers. The last 10% was reserved for random allocation. As a VIP, Wuxia also received an invitation to the Milan show, but he threw it aside. He wasn't interested in fashion shows, so he didn't plan to go. Celebrities who received a direct invitation from a brand were of course the highest status. The right to watch the show in the VIP section was a top-notch standard. Ordinary female celebrities couldn't get this position. In addition, people in this position not only had the priority to choose clothes to wear in the show, but they could also be personally received by the brand's designer to pave the way for future cooperation. Celebrities who didn't have a direct connection with the brand could choose to connect with 40% of the media. As the domestic media increased their coverage of the Fashion Week, watching a show with a celebrity became the focus of various reports. Some media even hired celebrities as special fashion observers, which became a win-win cooperation model. On one hand, the media used the gimmick of famous celebrities to enrich their coverage. On the other hand, celebrities could also use the media to increase their exposure. Some celebrities who didn't have any works, but had good looks and temperament, became the media's partners. Of course, some low-ranking female celebrities didn't even have such conditions. They didn't even have the qualifications to attend the fashion show. But in order to gain space and ride the popularity of the fashion show, they would fight at their own expense. They would take the initiative to pay the media's travel expenses, bribe the brand's public relations with high prices, and get in through the back door. Even if they didn't have a seat, standing was enough to write a few rounds of publicity. What outshines the crowd? What heaven-shattering beauty? What stunning appearance at the end of the show? What was the truth? Many female celebrities who failed to get an invitation to the fashion show shamelessly went to the red carpet, but they were still rejected by the ruthless fashion show. Even so, they still had to pretend to be elegant and stand outside the entrance of the fashion show to take a few glamorous photos. Later, they would use the publicity to hype themselves up, which was also a good way to get publicity. Xianxia's participation in the fashion show this time was all because her manager had helped her secure a collaboration with a major brand not long ago. Chapter 1438. Wuxia rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Suddenly, his gaze fell on the invitation letter that he had thrown aside. After receiving the invitation letter for the Milan fashion show, he threw it aside. He picked it up again and looked at it carefully. Then, he dialed Minyu's private number. "Book me a direct flight to Milan." "Boss, there's a final meeting tomorrow. Reschedule it." Wuxia said calmly, "Book the ticket now." Minyu didn't dare to disobey his orders. He immediately rushed to book the ticket. Milan. In the stylist studio, Xianxia's styling was done. A few stylists surrounded her and took turns to examine her. Then they pushed her in front of Xianxia. Xianxia crossed his arms and looked her up and down a few times. His gaze fell on her face and he stared at her carefully for a long time. Xianxia raised her eyebrows. Is there a problem? Lip color. Xianxia tapped his lips and commented, It's too light. Do you need to touch up your lip color? Of course. If the lip color is too light, it won't look good on camera. It'll make you look haggard. Xianxia was obviously experienced. He had attended more fashion shows than many female celebrities. Therefore, he had a high aesthetic standard when it came to makeup. One of the stylists said, Her skin is very fair. Indeed, dark lipstick is more suitable. Xianxia instructed the stylists, Use Dior Blue Gold number 999 for her. Okay. Xianxia touched up her lip color. The Dior Blue Gold number 999 color was especially bright. Together with her fair skin, the makeup gave off a noble and gorgeous feeling. Xianxia was satisfied. Very good. What about now? Xianxia snapped his fingers and said, Follow me to the venue to pick out the dress. After that, Xianxia immediately brought Xianxia to the star-making factory to make the final preparations for the show. The dresses for the female celebrities were all prepared by the brand. This time, Louis Vuitton had prepared 20 sets of gowns. Generally speaking, these gowns would be given to A-list celebrities and VIPs to choose from before being given to B-list and B-list celebrities to choose from. Therefore, when it was time for the celebrities to choose, they had no choice. In addition, most of the new clothes from these brands were samples that had not yet been put on the shelves. Most of the designs were custom-made according to the figures of Westerners. In order to make the dress fit better, the tailors had to do some post-processing, which would inevitably destroy the original cut and layering of the dress. If the celebrity's temperament couldn't be controlled, a big brand's ready-made clothes would be reduced to a David. The size of the gown was on the slim side according to model standards. Therefore, Xianxia didn't allow Xianxia to eat too much these days. He couldn't gain weight. She really couldn't put on more weight. Even if she gained 0.01 kilograms, it wouldn't do. The sizes of the gowns from the brand were on the small side. If she picked a beautiful gown but had to give it up in the end because her figure didn't match the gown, she would be in an awkward situation. As for the so-called joint name, the brand had its own standards. Even if it was difficult to pull a button, the gown would have to be given up. After all, the gowns prepared by the brand were all worth tens of millions. They were magnificent treasures, and some of them were limited edition. Therefore, the requirements for a celebrity's figure were very strict.